Thank you so much for being here tonight. Let us settle ourselves in prayer. Lord, on the night you died, you taught your disciples that your death was a manifestation of love, which all your followers were also called to live. You taught us that the best symbol of love is your cross. You taught us that love means I sacrifice myself for the good of others. You also help us understand that abortion is the opposite of love, for it says, I sacrifice the other person for the good of myself. Lord Jesus, the same words you used at the supper to teach us the meaning of love are also used by some to justify the killing of children. This is my body. Some say, this is my body, I can do what I want, even if it means killing my child. And you, Lord Jesus, say, this is my body given up for you, that you may live. Lord, help us to say and live those words as you do, as spouses say to their spouse, and parents say to their children, and pastors say to their congregations, and single people say to those they serve, this is my body given for you, my time, my service, my resources, my sacrifice, all offered for you. Lord, teach us, all people, that happiness is never found by pushing others out of the way, but only by pushing ourselves out of our own way to make room for others, starting with those most in need, the unborn. We ask this of you who live and reign forever and ever. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and with that, thank you, Dan. I want to bring up John Hines, who is going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would all stand, please. John, are you out there? Yeah, I'm right next to you. No, you're right there. All right, good to go.
As we all face the fight. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. God bless America. All right. The patriot. Well, my fault. Please stay standing. We're going to do the national anthem now. There's going to be a lot of patriotism tonight, people. A lot of patriotism tonight. Sandy Scheibel, come on up and sing for us.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
The world's a mess. And while others fiddle as it spins out of control, No Better Friend Corp is fighting like crazy for you in Wisconsin. We're pro-police and anti-critical race theory. We protect innocent life and demand a strong national defense. We're for reducing the cost of healthcare, kids actually in classrooms, and we celebrate school choice. We love economic growth, don't love politicians driving up the cost of energy or paying people not to work. No Better Friend is thousands of people at outstanding events learning how to make their voices heard. We're Wisconsin's dynamic catalyst for change. I'm Kevin Nicholson. Join us, speak up, protest. NoBetterFriendCorp.com is the place to start. Life today can be terrifying. Join us to effectively fight back.
Wisconsin has no better friend.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Volunteer President and CEO of No Better Friend Corp, Kevin Nicholson.
All right, Neenah. Well, first, we are absolutely thrilled to have you here. And that message that we're sharing across the state that you just saw, some of you probably seen it on your TV and computer and on the radio too, it's meant to catalyze the entire state of Wisconsin to, recognize that things are a mess right now, but to say that you, the individuals around the state, your family, your friends, can band together and fight back. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Sound good? All right. That's what I like. So before we get to our great speakers tonight, I'm going to just give you a little bit about No Better Friend, what we're doing, and what brings us all here tonight. So this is the second of our Fight for America rallies, and we expect somewhere in the area of 500 plus people here tonight. So give yourself a hand for coming out. It's outstanding to have you here. And that's coming on the heels of West Dallas last week. We had about 1,000 people together there. So just know you're not alone. You're not alone. So No Better Friend. I'm going to talk about that briefly. So as many of you know, I ran for the United States Senate in 2018. I lost that primary. And since then, it's been a tough go of it for conservatives across the state of Wisconsin. We've now lost, as conservatives, 11 out of 12 statewide races in Wisconsin. Anybody think that's a problem? I do. You bet it is. So after my race, people that supported me in that primary, and some that didn't, frankly, came to me and said, what are we going to do to grow our movement going forward and actually be out there making sure we can fight for the future of this nation? I said one of the things we could do is found a group that actually goes to every corner of our state, talks about conservative ideas and how they actually empower people and put them in a position to succeed. So we did. We founded that group, and we named it, well, I'll talk about the name for a minute. Many of you might know that No Better Friend, No Worse Enemy, that's a tagline that we Marines like to use. And by the way, it is Veterans Day today. Yeah, day after the Marine Corps birthday. Hoorah. And So when it came time to name this group, I came to my wife, Jessie, who's not here tonight, taking care of our kids, and I said to her, like, hey, we're going to name this group No Worse Enemy. And she said, no, you're not, because that would be a terrible message. So we went with No Better Friend, and it's in keeping with our ethos that, look, we operate everywhere around the state. We are, of course, we're in the Fox Valley, we're in Green Bay, we're in La Crosse, we're Eau Claire, we're in Milwaukee, the north and south side, Racine, Kenosha. And we talk to plenty of people and convene with them, and we explain our idea. And guess what? Not everyone we're talking to is a conservative today. We might be able to meet them where they're at and talk about how our ideas are going to make them more successful. And that includes everything from advocating on education reform, the idea that we need school choice in this state. We need parents and families to have the agency and the ability to choose the educational option that's best for their family. How about that? And I'm going to tie that together tonight with a couple of things that I'm going to talk about, including critical race theory, which is another thing that we're fighting hard on. And you heard it in that ad. But boy, we are fighting hard, and trust me, we've gotten many hundreds of people together from the Milwaukee area. We got 500 people in Dane County to show up to fight critical race theory. Yeah, you bet. You bet. And look, I'm willing to bet that not every one of those people that came and learned and heard from our great speakers agrees with every conservative issue, but boy, they know they don't want their kids being taught to hate each other, right? They know that, and that's a great place for us to start the conversation and say, we agree on this, and let's stop this poison before it destroys our country. And that's what we're fighting for. So school choice, and this is why it's so important. Like we literally go to neighborhoods in the north-south side of Milwaukee, Racine, Kenosha, and up here in Green Bay. We do book bag drives, and we say to people, hey, you know what? There are school choice programs today in Wisconsin that can help to get your kid in a better program, in a better school than they are currently, and that can change the trajectory of their life. And guess who's advocating for those programs? Conservatives. Conservatives in the state legislature that are fighting for your kids. Because if we're not there telling people this direct, guess what? Nobody else is. They're certainly not hearing that from the media. Before COVID hit, January 2020, we got 1,000 kids to the state capitol to celebrate education reform. Many of those kids came from disadvantaged backgrounds. Guess who wasn't in the building that day? You bet. Governor Tovey Evers. We scared him out. You think we can do that again in the future? You bet we can. You bet we can. So the bottom line is that, but that's telling the truth. It's saying that these programs can put kids in a better position to succeed in life. We as conservatives believe in that, and we're going to fight for a future in which money that comes from the state government that funds education attaches to children, no matter where they go to school. And that's important, and I'm going to talk about some of our other pillars here at No Better Friend, but like talk about how you defeat critical race theory, which is embedded in so many public schools right now, and in addition to companies, in addition to the United States military. How do you do it? Well, one, you force transparency. And what you'll find if you go to our website, as many of you probably have, you want to fight critical race theory, click on the button. We're going to arm you with information where you can reach out to your state legislators and demand transparency. And say that we want curriculums and teacher training materials up online. And once it's up online, it's really easy to find out when and where we've got public institutions today violating the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Remember, our forebears wrote it down and said you can't discriminate against people on the basis of race or ethnicity. We fought these fights, and we empowered all of America, all Americans. We extended the promise of America to all people, and now the left is trying to take us back. And we're going to stop that. And part of it includes transparency. It includes then filing lawsuits against those that are, in fact, violating the Civil Rights Act. And then also, too, that last piece of it, creating a marketplace for education where if your kids are being taught poison, or for that matter, not given the skills to succeed, you can go to a different school and take the funding with you. Sound like a plan? You bet. So I talked about a couple of our main pillars there. I want to talk about a couple more. Hey, we believe in economic growth. I talked about it there. And one of the things I said in that ad is we don't believe politicians should be driving up the cost of energy. What's one of the first things Joe Biden did when he came into office? Cut down the pipeline. And you saw energy prices begin to soar, and it continues today. You've heard all sorts of weird and frankly, untrue explanations of what happened down in Texas during those storms. Absolutely and unequivocally, reliance on unstable sources of energy had everything to do with the problems that we saw in Texas. Literally, people being frozen in their homes. That's the future the left sees for us. Driving up the cost of energy, making it less stable, and then also, too, at the same time, making labor more scarce. Let's talk about that for a minute and how bad this is for the future of our society. We have a president who has attempted in every way, shape, or form, along with Democrats in Congress, to encourage people not to work. And doing it at a time when companies desperately need them so that they can produce the goods that we all need to move forward in life. Now, we've all been told to shut up and take our medicine. The new thing that's coming from the left is, hey, you don't need all that stuff. Don't worry about it. They're actually saying that. It's that crazy. But what this is really doing is driving up the cost of labor and energy, which results in inflation. And that is the real-time destruction of wealth for families all across this country. And we as conservatives want to say, we have to say, we want you to be able to work, we want you to be able to buy and procure the things you want, and we want you to be able to live affordably. Now, is that crazy? No, but it's true. And that's why we have to be out in front of this, say what the left is doing, and call out the truth. And we'll continue to do that at No Better Friend. I want to talk about a minute about healthcare. So, healthcare. Anyone heard any good ideas about healthcare lately? No. And the problem is healthcare is going to bankrupt us if we don't get it right. So at No Better Friend, we do believe that the Trump administration took some great first steps on introducing price transparency into healthcare, forcing healthcare providers to attach prices to a certain amount of services that they provide. Well, I'm going to ask a quick question. Anybody out there ever buy a car without knowing how much it cost? No, because you're all smart people. You wouldn't be here tonight. But have you ever gone to the doctor's office and then for about the next 2 or 3 months received a bunch of things in the mail that tell you how much you owe for the service you already got? Yeah, that's a problem. And it stops you, the consumer of healthcare, from making rational decisions that make sense for your budget and your life. We believe there needs to be more transparency in healthcare. We need to enable consumers of healthcare, all of us, to make rational choices, to be able to save in healthcare savings accounts, roll those savings over to our future, accumulate wealth, and be able to make rational decisions. That's the way all other markets work, and that's why all other markets aren't threatening to bankrupt us the way that healthcare is. So we're advocating for this at all levels and across our state through No Better Friend. And Dan came up here and gave a great prayer on the importance of pro-life principles. One of our other major initiatives is working to protect innocent life everywhere and across the entire state of Wisconsin. We work with, yep, absolutely. We're good friends with Pro-Life Wisconsin, Wisconsin Right to Life, Wisconsin Family Action, but we also work with the crisis pregnancy centers that exist across our state. If you go to our website, you'll find that we've built a tool, basically a page, that makes it easy for the people of Wisconsin to find the crisis pregnancy centers throughout our state, so that those that are being encouraged to get abortions or considering abortions understand that there are other resources out there available to them that can share information about if adoption is the best option for them, to make it easy for them. If they're going to move forward and be a parent to their child, to enable them to succeed. That can include actual resources such as diapers, but also to a helping hand to set someone up to be a successful parent in terms of just training them, being there for them, all the things that we all need in life when we're in a tough spot. We actually got a third of the crisis pregnancy centers in the entire state of Wisconsin to come join us in the Dells to actually have a day of collaboration to talk about how we can reach more people across the state. And that's part of what launched our new webpage, No Better Friends for Life. And we're going to be advertising that throughout the state to make it easier for, again, people to find pro-life resources to get them to protect innocent life. And then last, and totally fitting here on Veterans Day, and it'll be a recurring theme that you'll hear tonight from our speakers, is we at No Better Friend believe that a strong and strategic national defense actually stops conflict before it begins. I did, and that's the key, right? That's the key. Our speakers tonight are going to touch on this in various facets, and we actually just did a couple podcasts with them too that we'll release through the Right Idea podcast. But we're going to talk about some of the missteps that have happened with regard to national security, how we need to do this better going forward. But unfortunately, the Biden administration seems to be going full force in terms of providing examples of exactly what not to do in terms of foreign relations and national security. So I just want to say this outright because it is true. Joe Biden is an idiot. He's an idiot. Yep. Let's go. I keep wondering if Brandon's going to show up to one of our events because there's a lot of people calling for him. But I'll tell you, look, I mean, it's painful. I'm a veteran of Iraq and Afghanistan, and I'll tell you, I have a frustration with the fact that for about 18 or so years in Afghanistan, we fought the war without a clear strategic objective. That's a problem for many generations of congressmen rolling through Washington and not saying, hey, we're deploying our sons and daughters. What ultimately is the ultimate strategic objective, the end state we're trying to achieve? We as the American people need to hold these politicians to a higher standard and say, you want to deploy our sons and daughters? One, tell me in a sentence what the objective is. Two, would you send your kid to go do it? Simple questions, right? But it's what we need to do. And instead, what we've seen, and again, that whole problem is a different problem, but Joe Biden's shameful, embarrassing, and ridiculous pullout from Afghanistan that resulted in the death of 13 U.S. service members, other local national Afghans, and again, handed over an entire arsenal to our enemies to either share with other foreign nations or to use against us in the future is insane. And what we have to say to our neighbors is, hey, look, you hear it from the news media, the left, and entertainers. They don't like war. Well, I hate war. I fought in two, and I don't want your kids or mine fighting in the same kind that I did. But I know that actually to stop that from happening, one early first step might be, I don't know, don't hand weapons of war to the enemy, right? Or, yeah. Or for that matter, remember that Joe Biden plays an intrinsic role in this, hand over hundreds of billions of dollars in cash to the world's leading state sponsor of terror, the Iranian government. And then tell us, take your medicine. Somehow that'll be good for you in the future. No, it's never good to give cash loaded onto planes, onto pallets, to terrorist states. But yet, those are the ideas that come from the left, and they continually come back to bite the American people. We as conservatives, and this is why we message this at No Better Friend, need to be out there and say, no, there's a better way. We don't want your kids fighting in wars, but we're going to toe the line. We're going to make it clear we have the capability to crush the bad guy, to stop them before they actually act. And that's the entire idea of our messaging, and I know that our speakers will reiterate that tonight. So this whole idea of fight for America, it is what I was trained as a Marine, move to the fight. Identify, and I always say, my team gets a kick out of it, identify stupid and then try and destroy it, right? So, at a kind of a play off of famous Marine Chesty Puller, we are surrounded by stupid right now, and in some ways that kind of makes the problem easier, because any which way you point, you're going to identify it. And then you just fight right through it, which is why we bring all you amazing people here tonight to talk about how to do that and how to move forward. So with that, I want to get into introducing our first speaker for tonight, Scott Pressler. Anybody heard of Scott? All right. So Scott is a conservative activist who grew up for half his life in Jacksonville, Florida, and the other half in Northern Virginia. Anyone heard any good news out of Virginia lately? Yeah. You bet. Keeping in theme with our Veterans Day theme tonight, his dad is a retired Navy captain, and Scott says that his parents gave him hope for the world because of their strong marriage. Scott graduated from George Mason University with honors in criminal justice. Despite his strong performance in school, he says that he was, quote, one of those millennials who could not find a job. So he started walking dogs for money. And after months of picking up dog droppings, and which he will say there is no shame in an honest day's work and labor, he saw his friends posting about their careers on social media. He was eventually hired full-time by Alexandria City Public Schools. Today, he's a conservative activist, both on social media and in person, fighting to clean up America from town to town, quite literally. And he is here tonight to tell you a bit about his fight. Scott, come on up.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me.
Yes.
Well, hello, Wisconsin! Low energy. That was Jeb Bush. On a good day. Let's do that again. Hello, Wisconsin! How about this? Let's go, Brandon. Well, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Scott Pressler. I am the son of a retired Navy captain. I am that long-haired Eagle Scout. And this year at CPAC, I was very humbled to receive the Ronald Reagan Award for Freedom. Thank you. But how did I start this political journey? Well, I graduated from George Mason with a 3.63 beauty and brains. I'm joking. I'm kidding. I couldn't find a job, so yes, I did start walking dogs for a living. And no, there is no shame in a hard day's work and an honest day's labor. I went on to work at an elementary school, and during this time, President Obama was re-elected for his second term. That night, I created my Twitter account because I told myself, Scott, you can sit at home, you can whine, you can complain, or do something about it. I started volunteering, thank you, and I fell in love with it because I met wonderful people like you, and I felt like I was making a difference in my community. I was affecting change. Now, the reason why I'm wearing cowboy boots here in the great state of Wisconsin is I got my first ever political job in 2014 helping to elect Governor Greg Abbott in the great state of Texas. who is building a wall along the southern border. I spent 2 years of my life working to defeat the Hillary Clinton, an accomplishment that we are all proud of. Thank you, Wisconsin. And I've spent the last 4 years traveling the country, registering thousands of voters, training tens of thousands of volunteers, and cleaning up our cities. You see, I want to make an important distinction that it was President Obama who inspired me on this journey, but it was President Trump who inspired me to take a deeper look at our neglected, abandoned inner cities. And I was really disappointed because I saw that, do you remember when he was talking about Baltimore? Yeah. And he used kind of ungraceful words talking about the city. And I was disappointed because I saw that everybody, they were quick to judge. They were quick to point the finger. They were quick to blame, but nobody was offering a solution. So I tweeted out to my followers and I said, I'm going to Baltimore. The tweet went viral. Everybody across the country, they wanted to help. And then I was like, uh-oh. So within 6 days, we organized a cleanup on a Monday, and we picked up 12 tons of trash in 12 hours in 1 day. I went home to my ma, and I was like, Ma, I'm really good at picking up trash. It was at that moment her heart swelled with pride. Because her baby boy, that dog walker, well, he done turned into a trash collector. And the reason why I share this story with you is I want you to understand the power of one, that you are infinitely powerful, but you have to make that choice to self-determine your future. And to give you the idea of how much one person can do, in just 2 years, we've organized cleanups in Atlanta, Austin, Baltimore, Chicago, Denver, Duquesne, Detroit, Houston, Kenosha, Los Angeles, Miami, Milwaukee, Portland, Pittsburgh, Philly! And I was even protested for picking up trash. I know, how rude. And San Francisco, California. With all due respect, Nancy Pelosi, eat your heart out. What does it mean to be a Republican? I think at the foundation of our Republican Party is the Constitution of the United States of America. And more importantly, while Democrats, they want to govern by coercion, mandates, and force, we as conservatives, we believe in liberty, freedom, and choice. And I want to treat you guys like a focus group for a moment. I'm going to name some conservative policies, and if you agree with the policy, I want you to cheer, I want you to shout, I want you to get rowdy. Okay? No vaccine passports. No mask mandates. You open our schools. Open our businesses. Fund the police. And defund the federal government. Term limits. School choice. No critical race theory in our schools or places of business. Veterans before illegals. Secure that gosh darn border. And last, and what I think is probably one of the most important things, stop giving money to countries that hate our guts. Is anything that I said extreme? No. Is anything that I said radical? No. No. I want to make it clear, this Republican Party is of an America First ideology. And that should be the test that every politician and every piece of legislation should have to undergo. Because if that politician or piece of legislation does not put the peace, prosperity, and well-being of the American people first, then it needs to hit the road. Now, what is the future of the Republican Party? And Kevin touched on some of these, and I want to reiterate. The future of the Republican Party is medical freedom and patient protection. We believe as Republicans that we, the people, not government, get to dictate how to run our lives. And while the Democrats, they will force you into retirement with their forced vaccinations, we believe in patient protection and that you get to make those medical choices in your own lives. Number two, we believe in parental choice in education. That again, the parents, you know better than government. And you know what our children should be taught in our schools. So, like oh, did you hear what happened in Virginia? Yeah, how did that work out for you, Terry McAuliffe, who believes that parents should have no voice in education? Well, that was the shockwave heard around the world because we elected Republican Glenn Youngkin in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Number three, have you noticed the Democrat Party is waging a war against women? They are trying to erase your gender. They call Latina and Latino Latin X. They want gender neutral everything. They call, and I hope I don't offend anybody, instead of mothers who breastfeed, they call it chest feeding. Have you heard of such a thing? I know. I didn't make this up, I promise. And that is the future of the Republican Party, that we have the opportunity to protect women's sports and that women should be able to compete on an equal playing field, that you don't have biological men competing against women. This is our historic opportunity to show women, I see you, I value you, I recognize the biological differences between men and women, and you have a place within our society. More importantly, you have a place within our Republican Party. And last, this is a big one, especially in the state of Wisconsin. This is our opportunity to show that the Republican Party is the party of unions. That while the Democrats, they ship union jobs overseas to China, they outsource our jobs here in Wisconsin. This is our opportunity to say, no, we are going to fight for the American worker first. We're going to fight to protect those jobs and keep those here in the great state of Wisconsin. And I don't know if you've been seeing what's happening in New York, but it's magical. The Democrats, they are waging a war against our firefighters, against our police, against our first responders, against our nurses, against the very people that were saving lives throughout this entire pandemic. And now they're telling them that they must get a forced vaccination or suffer retirement. And I'm here to tell you that thousands of Democrats across the state of New York are switching to Republican. So I need you to bring this message to the people. Let them know this is what we're fighting for. We're fighting for liberty. We're fighting for freedom. We're fighting for choice. I'm the son of a retired Navy captain, and my grandfather was a retired Navy captain. I don't know what happened to me, but that's a different story. I'm not cutting the hair. I'm sorry. It's staying. Do you know how long this took to flat iron? Thank you. And I'm very privileged that because of great men and women who sacrificed the ultimate sacrifice, that I am able to speak in front of you today. This is a privilege that countries around the world wish they had. And that's why I'm here, because there's a sense of urgency in doing this, because we are the last, truest, freest country in the world. And people are looking out to us as that shining beacon of hope. Don't let that fire die out. I'm counting on every single one of you. And I don't mean this to be disrespectful, because that's not my intention. I never served in the military, but I feel like I'm serving in a different capacity. And for those of you, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And if any of you have ever felt called to serve in your way, now is that time. Step up, take action, and do something! I want to thank Kevin Nicholson for having me today. I want to thank No Better Friend Corporation. And with all of your help, we in 2022 are not only going to have a decisive, overwhelming Republican victory, taking the House and taking the Senate, but we are going to oust Governor Evers. Thank you, Wisconsin! Thank you! Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Let's hear it for Scott Pressler. Outstanding. Are you fired up? Yes, you are. All right, before we get to our next speaker, I am going to do a quick introduction of the tabling groups that we have here tonight. So I know some of you probably stopped by, but Pro-Life Wisconsin, the Outagamie Republican Party, the Badger State Resistance, the Convention of States, Wisconsin Family Action, the National Rifle Association, Free Speech for Campus, Joe's Wisconsin Strong, and the Wisconsin Fraternal Order of Police. Give them a hand. Glad to have them out tonight. All right, to our next speaker. Do we have any folks here from the merry band of regulars in the crowd? Anyone ever heard of Joe Gigante? Okay. All right, regular Joe Gigante. I'm going to do a quick, he doesn't need an introduction. I'm going to do it anyways. So I'm pleased to introduce regular Joe. Joe is the host of the #1 rated The Regular Joe Show, which is heard weekday mornings throughout 2/3 of the state of Wisconsin. Joe has spent more than 30 years in broadcasting and has worked in virtually every facet of the media, marketing, and communications world, including roles in executive leadership, broadcasting, public relations, crisis management, political strategy, and campaigns. As a native of Washington, D.C., we won't hold it against him. Joe has an intimate understanding of the interaction between nonprofits, think tanks, and the government. Since moving to Wisconsin in 2007, he has been very active in state and local politics through his extensive network. He is the founder of Wisconsin Strong, which is here tonight, a new nonprofit dedicated to defining and energizing the conservative movement and the Badger State, and he's incredibly involved in the pro-life movement. Joe and his wife, Kristen, are the proud parents of 5 children, and that is how pro-life he truly is. And if I'm not mistaken, he's also selling Let's Go Brandon signs at his table. Joe, come on up.
Hello, everybody. How are you tonight? Let's hear it one more time for Scott Pressler. That is, So they kind of suckered me in, and I'm going to tell you why. Because I said, will you speak? I said, sure. They didn't tell me I had to speak after Scott Pressler. I mean, it's like, all right, I can do this. So before I get into it, I just want to take a moment, because it is Veterans Day. And I'd like to invite all of our veterans here to please stand so that we can recognize you for your great service to our wonderful nation. That's right, let's hear it. Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard. Now here's the test. Anyone from Space Force? I doubt it, but it's worth, we'll get there. Now also, while we're on the question of our veterans, another part of that that's often overlooked that I want to recognize, if you are the spouse or the child, a family member of a veteran, please stand and be recognized, because without you, we wouldn't have these great vets as well. It takes, they're going to pull me off the stage if I say it takes a village. No, it doesn't. Mark is going to throw something at me for that one. But no, truly, it takes the family. That's what it really takes. And that's what makes it happen each and every day. So they asked me to talk about what the problems are we're facing, how we get to solutions, which is what we're all here for. Now, there's a lot of problems. I get it. These are truly some of the darkest times in our nation. But that doesn't really mean a whole lot when it comes to the future, in that we still have hope. We were just talking about this back in the green room. Because our fight isn't Republican versus Democrat. It's not liberal versus conservative. It's good versus evil. And that means something more important. It's God versus the devil. And you choose which side you want to be on. Now, if we want to win, that means we have to be good and do good. And we can win. One thing I keep hearing, and I'm going to tell you, I won't abide it. I can't abide it. Which is that we kind of have to do a little bad to get the good. That doesn't work. We don't have to become them to beat them. I heard that great thing. Dan Miller earlier with his opening prayer. I think it was awesome, Dan. You know, and he said, you know, Christ died on the cross so that we could live. Jesus didn't become like the devil. He pushed the devil down. He stomped the devil down, and he got the greatest victory. That's our roadmap, how we find things. And look, there's a lot of problems. Critical race theory, election integrity, because you believe that Joe Biden got more votes than any presidential candidate in history, right? Yeah. If you do, I have this oceanfront property up north I can sell you. It's a really good deal, I promise you. Big deal. It is a big deal. Critical race theory, big deal. Abortion. The sanctity of human life underlies everything. If we can kill a child in the womb, nobody's life matters. There's no value to life if we don't see that. But those aren't the biggest. And look, as Kevin said, you know, I've spent a big part of my career working in the pro-life movement. But right now, to me, there's three things that are our biggest problems. Now, we've got an amazing crowd here tonight. Give yourselves a round of applause for coming out tonight. This is a great crowd. I think our first challenge, and I'm not saying you, I'm not saying your neighbor, but it is a challenge. The first challenge we have is apathy. The second challenge we have is fear. And the third challenge is inaction. Because you put any of these topics, no matter which hot button issue it is, those three things will lead to failure. If we sit by and we out of, whether it's apathy, fear, inaction, a combination thereof, then we won't be victorious. And it's okay to be outraged, believe me. I have people, for those that listen, you'll hear, I get callers like, why aren't you more angry? All right, look at the wall in my garage. But anyway, I mean, you know, but it's not enough to just be outraged. You've got to make it into something. You've got to turn it into to actions that matter. And again, when we have, our emotions are a part of our humanity, but they can't control us. We cannot be a slave to our emotions. Liberals are slaves to their emotion. People that hide in their basement because they're afraid that they're going to die if they go out in public, they're slaves to their emotions. There's no science involved in that. There's nothing even healthy involved in it. Matter of fact, pretty much everything they've done in the last 20 months has been the antithesis of what's good and healthy for human beings. And they fed it to us that it's for us. But why now we face the mandates? Which, let me be clear, apparently Steve Schrader, who's my producer, does a Saturday show, and apparently somebody called in and argued with him that I had gotten the shot. And he goes, well, I'm pretty sure he didn't get the shot. Let me be clear, not ever happening. It won't happen. There's not enough money or coercion in the world that'll make me do it. Now again, if you want to, that's your choice. I don't say you can't have the choice to do it. I say you have no right to force it on me. Now the only reason, though, that we're here with that right now is because 20 months ago, apathy, fear, and inaction allowed them to get their foothold. They said you can't go to church on Easter Sunday. And you know, the failure on that was top down. Every pastor and bishop that lives in this country that said, well, what are we going to do? You know what you're going to do? You're going to hold Sunday services. It's a very simple thing. During that, as he's mentioned, I have 5 children. 3 of them are teenage boys. So food is, it's an art form. It's just, I think they eat it and I gain the weight. I'm not really sure how they do this. When they locked down the state of Wisconsin, we went out to dinner in public more than we ever had before, and I did it for an important reason. One, I wasn't going to listen. I refused to listen to the governor. He had no authority to do it. But I also wanted to teach my children through action. You can lament it, we can be angry about it. They went out and had dinner with me. We sat in restaurants at times where we're the only people in the restaurant. We got a lot of really good service, by the way, so it was awesome. There were sometimes, it was kind of cool, you know, I always, as you know, I talk about movies on the show. I compared, what was the Santa Claus. There's a scene where he's trying to cook Christmas dinner and he burns himself, and he goes like Perkins, and there's another dad and his hand's all wrapped up and it's all burnt. Well, we were kind of like that with the big, we were the big rebels. We'd be in a restaurant, there'd be like 1 or 2 other people there, no one wearing a mask. We'd look at each other and be like, yeah, we're doing it. So. But it's a small little thing, right? It's not a big deal. We just went out to dinner. We just continued to live our lives the way we were meant to live our lives. And we weren't going to be controlled. That's part of fighting back. Who's heard of the phrase, death by 1,000 paper cuts? You hear it? Well, victory comes by 1,000 small steps all going forward. And that's part of this action. It's not, look, we don't always need somebody that's going to swoop in and fix everything in one fell swoop. That works in the movies, not so much in life. But we need everybody willing to take those small steps, willing to do whatever little thing they can do, whether it's showing up and going out for dinner, whether it's saying to your boss or to your, maybe you are the boss, whatever it might be, we're just not going to do this. We're not going to play the game. Well, right, we're not going to comply. But more than not complying, we're going to be proactive. I've been saying this on the show for a couple weeks now since this ocean nonsense has come out. I mean, really, there's only one acronym that scares good, God-fearing Americans more than ocean. That's FEMA. But I mean, that's, you know, OSHA's coming to save the day. Oh, all right, we're all dead now. I mean, look. The fact of the matter is, if you own a business, it's a very simple sentence to the government. No. Go with Nancy. I'm right here. I'll take the call. No. Go with Nancy Reagan. Just say no. Look what happened when Southwest Airlines, what was it, 3% of their pilots didn't show up one day. Guess what? Southwest blinked, and they backed off on the mandate. If we stand up and say no, there's more of us than there are them. So the problems we have are not being frustrated, not caring. I know every one of you care, but is making sure we turn that frustration into something that will actually effectively make a difference, which is where I came up with that little, phrase I have, which is think smart, act effectively, work together. One thing I want everyone to do tonight before they go is get to know the people around you. There's great organizations outlining this entire the room, but there's also great individuals. Maybe they have a group, maybe they don't. Maybe you guys get together and have a book club or read the Bible together, whatever it takes to get to know each other and to understand something. Because when it comes to act effectively, that before you can do that, you have to think smart. And I had a guy, I was in Wausau, whatever the Saturday was after January 6th. And we were doing a rally up there, and I'm giving a speech. And this gentleman who I get very frustrated, patriotic American, starts heckling me from the crowd, because, I'm a liberal, and says, we need to go in and drag Nancy Pelosi out by her neck. And I looked at him and I said, well, I'm not going to give your eulogy at your funeral either. Because what is that really? What's that going to accomplish? First of all, you won't get past the front doors. Let's be clear. But what is it really going to do? It's going to give them every excuse they want to crush conservatives as fast as possible. That's not thinking smart. I promise you something. What the left wants, what the evil people, what the devil wants, is for you to give into those frustrations, to give into those anger moments and do something stupid. They beg you to do it. Now, if you had I've had a few bad bosses in my career. That's why I work for myself now. But anyway, simplest way to fix it, start your own company. But I learned something because I had a bad boss. I was too young to realize I was running a radio station in Washington, D.C., and I was doing very well, but I didn't realize he didn't want to do very well. He had bought the station as a tax write-off, so he wanted it to do bad. He didn't tell me. I thought he was serious, so I programmed the station. We're getting ratings, and he started to really lay in heavy on me on a daily basis, accusing me of trying to destroy the station, get rid of all this stuff. I was 19 years old, and I did something that most 19-year-olds might do. I got into my boiling point. I was out on a live remote, and he called, I called him because all of a sudden the music stopped playing, and they started playing music that I hadn't programmed. So I called the studio, and what are you doing? You're killing me out here. Got a crowd and everything else. And I said, Bill said to do it. So I called Bill, and I said, and what are you doing? He starts yelling at me. And so I said, three words, go something yourself. And then I said, I quit. And I literally walked out because I'm going to show him. I'm going to walk out in the middle of this remote, which is a big moneymaker for the station, and it's all going to go downhill, and they're going to miss me, and they're going to hate everything, and I'm going to show him. And in reality, I was unemployed, and I was blacklisted for a while because, I told the owner of the station to take a long leap. It didn't work. Now, I learned a little later in life when I had a bad boss, if you really want to frustrate them, don't quit. Matter of fact, stay there, do the job, smile the whole time as they're saying this to you, and watch. It kills them. It absolutely kills them. So the same is true now. Don't give them what they want. Give them what we need, which is victory. And we can have that victory. We don't have to become them to win. As a matter of fact, I promise you, if we try to be like them, we will lose. Because it gains nothing to give up all that we believe in for a hollow victory. And that's all it would be if it even happens. But we're never going to out-cheat the cheaters. We're never going to we can't outdo the devil at being the devil. We don't need that. We have the single greatest weapon known to man. We have the truth. And if we fight and use the truth for what we're going to do, we will find a way. Now look, there's no simple battle plan, right? We can't say step 1, do this, step 2, step 3. Because we're blazing new trails. You tell me the time in the history of the United States that we've been in this situation where we have to sit there and legitimately wonder, was the last election real? Even in the state of Wisconsin, if the effeminate speaker could find his backbone, We might actually find out what really happened in 2020. The people want majority. Look. People want a supermajority. I think that's an awesome idea. People want the skeleton, the man who we don't know if he has a pulse, one-term Tony out of office. Absolutely down with that. If you want an army to show up and make that happen, then get to the bottom of what happened in November of 2020. Do it fully, transparently, with a full forensic cyber audit, nothing less. If they would just do it and get to the bottom of it, then they could have that army, no matter what the outcome is. Doesn't matter what the result, well, it matters what the result is. But even if the result comes out and look, for whatever crazy reason, Joe Biden won the state. But we did a full forensic cyber audit that was fully transparent. We got there. By the way, if we do that, that's not going to be the result. But let's pretend. Let's pretend. They like to pretend on the left. Let's pretend that's going to get us there. Get to that result, and I promise you, they will have that army. I promise you, you will have turnout like you've never seen before. But it's not, this isn't a give, right? It's not, we'll just show up in November and vote for us because we're, as one elected member of the assembly said to me, what are they going to do, vote for the Democrat? And I said, no, we're not that stupid. But apparently you forgot there's people that can challenge you in a primary, and you forgot about write-ins. You cannot take the voter for granted. When I crisscrossed this state leading up to Donald Trump's to the election in November 2020, and there were tons of people out there. Not everyone did everything we hoped they would do, but there wasn't a lack of energy. But there was at the state level. I mean, let's be clear. And this is not hyperbole. I can pull the quotes out of the newspaper. The speaker is a virulently anti-Trump guy. So is the majority leader in the assembly. That's their choice, right? I mean, they don't. I'm not saying they have to be, Mr. Trump's the greatest thing, but then don't do cameos with him either. But don't pretend like you were out there pulling out all the stops to make things happen. And now that we're in this position, you have the chance to make right and do the right thing. So again, what do we have to focus on? Whatever the issue is, it's ending the apathy. It's not being afraid. One of the things people have said to me, and I appreciate this, we love the show because you put voice to what we're feeling. And I'm happy to do it. I love doing it every day, being on the air with you guys, being out in these events. But I can't be the only voice. You've got to use your voices too. And it doesn't have to be a big speech. It can be as simple as, no, I don't think so. I walked into a store where the woman said, you're going to need to put a mask on. I said, no, I'm not. And she said, well, if you want to buy something, you are. I said, do you want to go out of business? And she thought for a second. I said, because, I spend this particular store, I spend about $300 every time I walk in here. She knew I'm a frequent customer. She thought for a second. She goes, well, just be quick. So I just went and got my stuff, and I left. Again, it can be done. But it takes each and every one of us. We don't have to be mean-spirited. We don't have to be rude. We don't have to create a scene. It's just a matter of being what we are. And do you know what we are? We're Americans, and we are free. And this is the land of the free and the home of the brave. And that's what we have to be. Not yesterday, not last year, today, tomorrow, and every day forward. And if we are that, I promise you, it may not be easy, but we will win. I thank each and every one of you. God bless you. And remember those three important words. Live life boldly. Thank you very much, everybody.
Well, he's a Joe, but I'm not sure how regular he is. He's an outstanding Joe. How about it for Joe? All right, I'm going to jump right into introducing our next speaker, Greg Stubbe, Sergeant First Class retired. Retired Sergeant First Class Greg Stubbe was born in Long Beach, California, and is the son of a career Navy man. But he enlisted in the United States Army in July 1988 as an infantryman. He was selected for the Green Berets in November of 1992 and trained as a Special Forces medical sergeant in 18 Delta. His training included surgery, anesthesia, trauma management, pharmacology, minor dentistry. That's got to be a real sore tooth when you turn to your medic and you're like, right now, let's do the root canal, right now. Veterinary subjects, and more. He spent the 1990s with the Special Forces, stationed in hostile fire zones. In addition to his medical training, Greg attended the defense language training, acquired proficiency in Russian, received skill training as a dive medical technician, is SEER qualified, survival, evasion, resistance, and escape. And as a career parachutist, Greg earned the qualification of Jump Master, eventually awarded the Master Parachutist badge. So, Greg was selected to be cadre in the John F. Kennedy School Special Warfare Center and School, helping to select and train a new generation of Green Berets. In combat operations in the global war on terror, Greg was wounded in Afghanistan during Operation Medusa. Greg's wounds that resulted from a remotely detonated IED and enemy fire seemed fatal, but instead he survived and then endured 17 surgeries and an 18-month hospital stay. Greg retired in 2011 after 23 years of dedicated service. He went on to host his own TV show, authored a book titled Conquer Anything, serves as a consultant and leadership presenter for the FBI National Academy, the DEA, the NYPD, Homicide Detectives Academy, and many other agencies and corporate entities. And tonight, he's with us in Neenah. Greg.
Y'all might want to wait till I'm done before you clap. You might not like this at all. I guess there's one thing I'm compelled to say. I love you. I do. Golly. I'm home with you. You know, it took them 23 years in the Army to figure out that I was untrainable. And then they kicked me out, and I'm on the bench now. I'm out here in America with the rest of you losers. And the honest truth is that's an identity crisis, because they trained me on my weapons and my equipment and tactics and set me free around the world with no adult supervision. And then I come home after facing America's bad guys for so long, and now I got to take a class from a dude that works at the post office so I can carry a pistol. Okay. So yes, if you see a crisis here, it's not just that I'm getting older. But here I am, and when I came home wounded, I'd never planned for that. See, I was the medic in Special Forces, and on the A-team we saw a lot of bad things, and I was charged with the responsibility of saving lives, and I failed many times, and I witnessed grown men, married men, as they died, they would make spiritual references to God and to their mothers, and it wasn't like a movie. It was very, very serious and very solemn, and I worked, trained and fought with brave soldiers that died, but not before they would say things to me like Bill Brown. Bill Brown was my battle buddy through the Battle of Spurwin Gar, and we were shoulder to shoulder running out of ammunition, 1,000 Taliban surrounding 30 of us. And I got to tell you, when you're running out of ammo, what does a Green Beret want when he's surrounded by 1,000 Taliban and he's running out of ammo? Y'all stupid. He wants his mama. And until you can deal with that scared, screaming, kicking child inside of you that wants out of that situation, you're not going to make good decisions, and you're not going to do good things, and you're not going to realize that you're not everything you thought you were. And the chip that was on my shoulder by that time had allowed me to think that the people in the rear that packed the ammunition, they weren't as important as me. In fact, I can tell you, from 7 years in Bosnia and Kosovo dealing with genocide, dealing with an absence of freedom. It took us 3 years to even set up their first free election. Oh, 3 years. Why did it take 3 years? Because their favorite campaign strategy was to assassinate their opponents. You don't vote for dead, well, I guess maybe sometimes you do. But you know, after my experiences over there in Bosnia and Kosovo, something happened. It was a survival mechanism where I started believing I was 10 feet tall and bulletproof. And to survive my lack of emotional maturity and the horrible atrocities that I witnessed, I really became something that wasn't good. In order for me to feel that big and strong, the first thing that happened was I didn't give credit to God. I gave credit to me. And I walked around like I was 10 feet tall and bulletproof, but I never was. You see, we're born human, aren't we? And that means we're born into this world slobbering on ourselves and pooping on ourselves. And if it weren't for the tender mercies and the nurturing and the selfless service of someone in our lives, usually mama, we would die in the infection of our own feces. And if life goes perfectly in this world, on this earth, we'll sail through the years and the decades, but we know it doesn't go perfectly. Bad stuff happens, right? But if it does, if nothing ever traumatic or tragic happens to you, then you sail through the years and the decades and you reach this romantic sunset of life, and you're slobbering on yourself and pooping on yourself again. And once again, it's going to take the tender mercies, the nurturing, the selfless service of someone else to keep us alive. Why aren't we loving each other? Why don't we think we need each other? And why would we think for 1 minute that strength comes from anything but faith and love? It's the only thing that can last. And I spent my career going to crazy places, doing crazy things, and I'm really proud of it. But what I'm not proud of is that I failed. I failed to recognize what the real power was behind what I was doing. And it started with God, and fortunately, God transferred His power and might through some amazing founders of this country. And we wound up with a constitution that we stand for and stand by. And we've seen what happens when we don't. Now, I'm a warm-up act tonight. And I'm so proud that I get to be here with Mark Geist tonight. What an American hero. And he's less a hero to me for what he went through in the battle space, you know, because I did that stuff too. But what makes him a real warrior and a hero is that he doesn't focus it on himself. He knows that faith and love and compassion are the core. And we have that in common, but it's no different for anyone here tonight. The reason I know I love you, number one, you're American. Number two, there's only a certain set of reasons why you'd be sitting here tonight. Yeah. And in the face of modern challenges, I question your sanity to be here tonight. Aren't you afraid of being canceled? Oh my, oh my. So in having fought in Afghanistan and lost friends there, I was not pleased by the way we withdrew. And I wrote an op-ed about it, and it wound up, I don't know why, but Fox News picked it. You know, those extremists. And when my op-ed went on, it drew a lot of angst from liberals, I'll just say it. And they wished me brainworms. Those aren't warm holiday wishes, right? and I guess with the ruckus, they thought it'd be a good idea to bring me on. Now, I had never, as a military man, spoken against a sitting administration. I wasn't raised that way. In fact, I was raised to think that if you even said an unkind word about our president, no matter which side it was, you're going to jail. And I like that kind of respect. But I had to speak up. Because I'm invested in this country. I love this country. I love the principles we're founded on, and so many of those principles have been violated that I had to speak up. And I questioned how an administration can be so woke that they cancel us, their own citizens, for something we said 20 years ago. But they won't cancel the Taliban for cutting our heads off for 20 years? I wonder how does that jive? And so I find it immensely important that we gather, that we share these values. Because if the opposition is free to say all that they do against the institution that created their freedom to speak in the first place, what is it that's inhibiting us? Is it fear? Are we afraid of being canceled? And I suggest that each one of you, by all means, be excited about tonight. But you should be more excited about tomorrow. You should be more excited about leaving here and making a positive impression on other people. Not a polarized, angry impression, but the kind of impression that says we stand for love and compassion. Now, as a career Green Beret, would you guess that I fought for love and compassion the whole time? I love freedom, and I have compassion for the human condition anywhere on the planet. Is it different for you? No. You're here to fight for America the same as I have. And on this Veterans Day, I'm asking you, and I know a bunch of you are veterans. This is not about you turds. Because we get enough attention. Tonight, I'm making a plea on this Veterans Day. I really want to focus on the shadow warriors, those who don't. They're not the ones who raise their right hand and swear in and get all the credit for the service, the heroism, the sacrifice, but they go along with us for the ride. And they accept the challenges and the sacrifice that comes with it. They raise our children in our absence, and we come back to strong, brave, smart kids that we thought only we could raise that way. Somehow they wind up that way, right? Thank you, Mama. And thank you, Daddy, that stays home. If I had my wish tonight, beside the word service in the dictionary, or I'm sorry, I'm a dinosaur, Wikipedia. What? There would be a picture beside the word service of Mama. And I know there's a lot of political correctness going on, and there are gender disputes. And so I don't want to... Okay, so let's be fair. If you weren't born to a woman, raise your hand. Okay. Yeah, so maybe, just maybe, we can have an adult conversation. Yeah, but I think, for the longest time, I was drinking the Kool-Aid, because you can't swing a dead cat without hitting a bumper sticker that says, I support the troops, or I back the blue, which means don't give me a ticket. Right? And so And so while I'm all in favor and I've dedicated my life to the culture of service, I have to grow up and realize that the true service begins with our relationship with our Creator. And from there, in any worldly sense, it goes to mama or someone like her that nurtures us and serves us in ways that we may never serve anyone else in our whole life. How about that, men? And okay, gender difficulties here. I don't want to stereotype, but men are idiots. Because we are most likely to take all that love and compassion that we get and march out into the world thinking we're tough and strong, and we're the first to forget what made us strong in the first place. And so much of our confidence is because we know that when we go back home, there is someone loving us, caring for us. And it makes us feel strong that even if things go wrong during the day, we can go back, and we wouldn't want our friends to know that we let mama pet us on the head when we get home. And somehow things are clean and well kept, and we've never done anything but screw it all up. So I think, when I think of mama, she can be sick, tired, hungry, injured, and none of that matters. She's up through the night wiping our butts. And I think as a principle in life, it is important to understand the one criteria for mama's success, and that is our success. What if we could lead like that? What if we could make sure that our people succeed and bank everything on it? And furthermore, men, idiots, if we think that things like maternal instinct and feminine virtues, love and compassion, if we think that that stuff makes us weak and people won't respect us, well, we're fools and we deserve what we get. Because if you're leading people because you're in an appointed position and you do it because you said so and you're in charge, well, that's one thing. People will do what you're asking because it's the nature of work, even volunteerism. But what will they do for you if they know you love them? Doesn't that change the equation? And we all love to know that our leader loves us, but when we get in charge, we forget that, and we just act like a tool bag. Why do we do that? Is it that we don't think we need anybody? Is it that we think we're tough? We're in charge because we're smarter? No. So tonight I want to give credit back to where it's due, because I think our founding principles go back to God and mama, and only things that follow that can ever be strong or sustain themselves into the future. We're going to need love and compassion, and we need to start tonight, because I guarantee you're mostly a local crowd. Some of you drove in, but a lot of you know each other, and by human nature, there's someone here you don't like. No, don't point him out. That's not the point. My point is to say that we have to overcome a lot of our own human nature just to be decent people and stop judging other people because they're not the same as we are. Thank God people are not the same as we are, because then everybody would be jerks. The truth of the matter is that it's hard to see the good in another person because of the way we're born so selfish. It's hard to see the good in another person unless there's something in it for us. And sad but true, even within our conservative base of American people, we are busy judging each other based on petty, little perceived differences. And we're failing to embrace our absolute commonalities. And in the Special Forces, I learned one valuable lesson. Murphy's Law has an addendum to it. If something can go wrong, it will. But oh, by the way, the one that saves your butt in a true crisis is going to be the one you've been talking the most trash about for years. Oh, yeah. Then we'll be eating crow, and all of a sudden, when they save your life, when they sacrifice themselves to save you, oh, how we love them in that moment. Oh, how they become a champion, a hero. They're on our Christmas card list for life. We want our kids to meet that hero that saved us. Well, what about that person becomes great all of a sudden? What changes about them? Nothing. The only thing that changes is our ability to see the greatness that was in them the whole time. So we need to stop judging each other. Stop thinking about the turd in the room. In fact, I'm not even going to ask permission. I'm going to declare a new holiday here tonight. Let's make this Hug a Turd Day. Because as long as they're at a distance, we're never going to see the commonalities. So just bridge that gap and hug a turd. But I know, here we go to political sensitivities again. Everyone is supposed to be a winner. Everyone gets a trophy. So when you hug a turd tonight, make sure neither one of you knows for sure which one the turd is. And that way we can all leave with our heads high. So what I'm getting at is that it's been put in my face many times that the people I judged harshly wound up saving me. And it was almost like a nightmare when it was first occurring because, I mean, you think about it. And I'm guilty of all this I'm talking about. I am the primary offender. In the Army, there was two kinds of people I couldn't stand to begin with. They were from Texas and New York. Because they'd never shut up about it. Okay, Texas is bigger, but we're not there right now. Can we have a good day anyway? And New York, don't get me started about New York. We could be out in the field on training exercises for 6 weeks, eating MREs and having passed a solid turd in 5 weeks, constipated, and then we get a break and we get to go to Taco Bell. Woo! That's a celebration, but not Mr. New York City. Oh, you should see it in New York. We got 13 restaurants on every block. They're open all night. This is nothing. Yeah, it is. But since I retired, I've actually spent a lot of time in New York and in Texas, and they're wonderful places, and honestly, wonderful people. But they should stay there. Now, my judgment has gotten so bad that after 7 years in and out of Bosnia and Kosovo, I began to look at my own country people, my own citizens in America, as lemmings, like they would follow each other off a cliff. Because they don't do what I do. They don't know the evil truths about what's really going on in the world. If it wasn't for me, you would all die, choking on your own tongues. Wow. And I got back to Fort Carson, and I pulled into a gas pump, and across the pump from me, and look, the judgment we cast on each other is not just individual, it's generational. There's never been a senior generation that approves of a younger generation. No. They don't have any discipline. They don't have any respect. They could never do what we had to do to get where we are, and our future's doomed if that's what we got to count on. And we were all subject to that, but somehow we turned out okay. And we're still doing it to the younger generation. Do we not know how much we need them? If they don't wind up better than we are, we fail. It's our problem, not theirs. Who's the adult in the room anyway? Where's the example going to come from? Now, social media is dividing the generations even further, in my opinion. But it's up to each one of us to bridge that gap. It is. We have to do it. And you know this generational judgment happens. It's a cultural divide almost. Before I was born, now I was raised just north of Memphis. And there was this fellow named Elvis everybody kept talking about. But before I was born, they wouldn't even show that man on TV below the belly button on account of the way he was moving his pelvis and stuff. Oh, he was going to Hades for that. And if you were listening to that devil music, the cultural divide in this country said you was going to Hades too. And I just feel so bad for Elvis. You know, he was judged so harshly for that. And why don't we just apologize? Elvis, we're sorry. We had no idea about Miley Cyrus. Now we want our kids to watch footage of Elvis to see what wholesome entertainment used to look like. If you love your conservative values, you will begin doing more to impart them upon the younger generation. We need to be in the business of putting ourselves out of business. And for me, the lessons I learned, they hurt. They hurt. I had a class come in. I was an instructor for Special Forces, and this class came in, and I could see among the students there was this giant Texas turd in the middle of them. And I didn't like him. He didn't say things I liked. He didn't do things I liked. And he was going to fail if I had anything to do with it. Because if he became a Green Beret, mine would mean even less. That's how arrogant I'd become, though. And that's a problem. But I didn't do anything to cause him to fail. He just did. He didn't meet the standards. And when he failed to meet the standards, he came to my office like all the other guys. And if you want to see a grown man crumble, put him through a year and a half of Special Forces training where we're doing things to them that we can't even do to enemy combatants in interviews. I said interviews. And they do it voluntarily just for an enhanced opportunity to die for all of us. And for some reason, I couldn't see the absolute commonalities because of my petty little judgment, my perceived differences. But I said to him the same thing as I said to all the other students. My daddy would kill me if I let you pass knowing that you couldn't save my life in combat. And he didn't do like the other grown men did, get in a fetal position and cry. Because, they had to go home and tell their families that now they wouldn't be a Green Beret, even though they dedicated so much of their family time and quality of life. Well, this Riley Stevens fella from Texas, he just stood in front of me brave and strong. He said, "Roger that, Sergeant. Tell me what to do next. I refuse to quit." I still hated him. He was manipulating me. You see, I had a character assessment gun that never failed me. I could tell if you were a turd all the way in the back corner. Oh, boy. He went for a worldwide assignment and wound up doing several combat tours with the 82nd Airborne Division. And then when my instructor time was ending, in 2 weeks I'd be back with my team, getting back in the fight, and I was happy about that. And I got a letter from a colonel in the 82nd. It said, "Sergeant, Riley Stevens may be the best NCO I've ever had in my combat units, and he gives you the credit for his professional development." But he knew I hated him. And I thought, that fool has manipulated a battalion commander now. He was requesting permission to re-enter the Special Forces training program. He didn't have to do that, but he wanted my personal approval. He didn't want to offend me with an application to re-enter. I still hated him. Well, I approved it, but not because I'm a good person. I knew I wouldn't have to look at him. I was leaving anyway. And I figured that turd would never pass anyway, so let him suffer. And then he went through and he made higher grades and scores than I'd ever made in my career. And he became a Special Forces Green Beret medical sergeant in combat for America. So who's the turd? Turd identified. But back to when I came back from Bosnia, I pull into this gas pump, and there's this turd on the other side of the pump. Teenage turd pulls in, and I know it's a turd because his music's up so loud, I can't hear my partner talking to me in the truck. And then immediately I began casting the same judgment as had been cast on me. No respect, no discipline. Could never do what I had to do to get where I am, and our future's doomed if that's what we've got to count on. Well, He got out of his car, and I felt terrible. He had an obvious disability. He couldn't pull his pants all the way up. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Whoa. Hold up. Look, I'm a medical sergeant. I'm qualified to make that call. His hat was crooked too, so I knew. No, that's external proprioception and has to do with the brainstem. That's a cerebellar function that was failing. And then I looked around, and it was Asians, Hispanics, white kids, blacks, and they were all doing that. I thought, run, it's contagious. And there went my judgment that I cast on an entire generation. And a couple weeks later, the good Lord put it in my lap because airplanes flew into the World Trade Center and 3,000 innocent people died at the hands of terrorists. And from inside the military, I saw something amazing and empowering. People were giving up lucrative law practices and medical practices. And it's not just Pat Tillman that we all know. People gave up a lot to go and fight for us. But the real lesson came when I witnessed tens of thousands of these teenage turds turning down the radio, pulling up their pants, straightening up their hats, and going to the recruiting office and raising their right hand to swear in and fight and die for us. And that's what they've done. That's what they've done. You know why I joined the Army? There was no war going on. No, there was a movie called Rambo. That was my driving force to join the Army and become a green beanie. Wow. So look around. And if you really care about your children and their children and conservative values in America and freedom, we have to connect. We have to build a bridge. The evidence that things are going wrong is every Saturday morning in Hardee's. And you can see a quadrant of the restaurant occupied by geezers. Oh, are you mad? Are you mad? Well, face it. The truth is there's not a young person that's going to come within a mile of that. And you're not coming within a mile of them either. But the judgment is so thick you could cut it with a knife. Both ways. It needs to stop. But only if we love each other and only if we care about the future. These lessons for me kept coming. It was like the Lord knew it would take a lot to knock the chip off my shoulder, so he gave it to me. I wound up on the battlefield much later, and I got blown up and burned and shot. In a short period of time, I got full thickness burns over 30% of my body, 3rd degree. I got shot twice, crawling away from a burning vehicle that set me on fire. I had a 1-pound piece of shrapnel go through my hip and thigh and through my intestines, and it lodged in my bottom rib on the other side, and it removed about just over half of my intestines for me. Now, if you don't think the Lord has a sense of humor, how do you lose over half your intestines and still have a gut like this? It ain't fair. So, my right leg was traumatically amputated. It was just connected by what looked like a gray rope. The bones below my right knee cut through my pants leg and stuck in the sand like a lawn dart. and I fell down with my foot and ankle still in a boot, 1.5 feet away from the rest of my leg. And I started to give up in that moment. And I'm ashamed of that, but when I tried to swat at the flames and put out the fire, I couldn't reach. I had body armor with 80 pounds in total. And I was like a turtle flailing. I couldn't reach. My range of motion was restricted. And I thought it was over. And I felt stinging on my face, and I thought it was these sand flies or sand fleas that bite you out there. You can't even see them, but they hurt. Now, I'm on fire, and my foot's blown off, and I'm thinking about bugs. Okay, maybe shock. I don't know. But I actually raised up to swat to get these insects off my face, only to realize that it was high-velocity specks of sand that were hitting me in the face. And so I found a new reason to crawl straight into the marijuana that was next to us. Now, I don't usually go to drugs for comfort, but it was the only place that the enemy couldn't see me to shoot me. But one bullet hit me in the right kneecap, and it didn't break the kneecap. It just cut a nice little groove in it and split the skin. It was cool. You could see everything. But then I kept crawling, and I was running out of air. I couldn't take a full breath because the shrapnel was causing hemorrhage that was putting pressure on my diaphragm. I couldn't take a full breath. But then they helped me out by giving me a Forrest Gump wound. Something bit me in the buttock. And a .30 caliber went through my left butt cheek and blew out my right front pelvis, and it lacerated my abdominal lining. But that meant it relieved the pressure, and I could take full breaths. So it felt good until I looked along my right side, and my intestines were in a pile in the sand. I'm not trying to gross you out or shock you, but this is the nature of what it takes to defend what we have sometimes. And it's been done much longer than I've had anything to do with it. And many of you wrote the book on that. So as a medical sergeant, I knew there was nothing I could do for these intestines. But as a human being, in a panic, I was reaching for them, trying to grab them and pull them to me. They didn't belong where they were, but I couldn't get a hold of them. They kept slipping away. And that's when my buddies got to me. And I was glad for a minute. Until I realized, I know these turds, they can't save me. And immediately I was faced with a situation where I could have given them the cross-training they'd been asking for. I could have given up my beer 30 on a weeknight or a Saturday and helped them learn how to save me. And it shouldn't have been a selfish motivation, because a couple of them had been asking me because they lost buddies on the battlefield for things that they could have saved them if they'd only known how. But I didn't see it important enough for some reason. And I hope you see the correlation to how we're living. Because the things we want, the survival, the victory that we need to go forward, relies so heavily on us being in the business of putting ourselves out of business and teaching the younger people. It's what it's going to take. We can't keep gathering around a campfire talking about how other people are so screwed up. We got to get involved. Hug a turd. Do something. So my team started feeling helpless, and they were crying. And even my commander, 2 levels up, I witnessed him shedding tears. And tears are not a sign of weakness. They're evidence of overwhelming grief and immeasurable and unspeakable love. So we need not judge each other for emotional weakness unless you express it in outrage. Outrage, you heard of that? When I was growing up, outrage was an emotional failure. I guess now it's a measure of good citizenship. If you're not outraged, you're not paying attention and you don't believe in anything. Wow. Oh, no, I'm sorry. You're a racist. But here I was, and these people were so concerned for me and compassionate and caring and working so hard while their own lives were in peril. Bullets were passing by. I could see clippings falling from the marijuana plants around us, and they refused to get down. They were over me, trying to help me. Poor Steve, youngest guy on my team, he was at my right shoulder, I'll never forget. He felt so helpless, he relegated himself to being a cheerleader. You got this, bro. This ain't nothing to you. You're going to be fine, bro. And he's just like pumping sunshine up my butt the whole time. But everybody else is looking real bleak. And then suddenly everybody perked up and they're like, hey, you're going to make it now. We got a medic inbound. And I'm thinking, yes. And I see a medic coming up and I see that aid bag and I'm thinking, woo, it's one of my own. But it was Riley Stevens. It was the giant Texas turd with an aid bag now. And when he got to me, I should have been totally focused on my self-preservation and survival. What do you think I said to him as he approached? I was still trying to overcome the weaknesses in my humanity, my lack of professionalism and dignity. When I saw him, all I could think to say in that horrible condition was, no hard feelings, right? and of course he didn't. He didn't have hard feelings. He went to work, not only trying so hard to save my life, but I found out he really wanted to prove to Sergeant Stubbe that he can do this. And, you know, in that moment, I love me some Texas. And I loved me some Riley Stevens. Look at this hero that saved my life. And what changed about Riley Stevens in that moment? Nothing. The only thing that changed was my ability to see the greatness that had been in him the whole time, but I denied it. We can't build a team without recognizing the greatness around us, even though it looks different than we do. Seriously, we have to build a team if we're going to succeed. Now, immediately, I wanted Riley on my Christmas card list for life. I wanted my son to meet the brave hero that saved me in combat. But Riley didn't get to come home. I wear this bracelet for him now, and it's not for sympathy, because he would kick my ass. And my daddy taught me where to find sympathy. Kevin, can I say a curse word? Just one. My daddy always taught me that if you want sympathy, you can get all you want. It's in the dictionary between shit and syphilis. That's your resource. But I didn't hug a turd. And instead of bringing him closer and mentoring him, counseling him, advising him, hey, I hear you saying this, and that doesn't really jive here. I see you doing this, and that will cause failure. I didn't do it. I kept him at a distance, looking at him with judgment. I wasn't in the business of putting myself out of business, and I regret that so much now because I can't send him a Christmas card. And I love him. Don't be me. Don't do that. What we're fighting for is so much bigger than ourselves. And if we believe in God, and I hope you do have faith. I hope everyone here believes in something greater than themselves. Now, I'm not telling you that you have to be a Christian. No. But have faith in something greater than yourself. You're going to need it to posture yourself to serve anything greater than you. But if you don't believe, and it kind of means you think you're the apex of all creation. And I'll just speak for the rest of us and say that we're disappointed. We were hoping for more. When we reach a threshold for all we can understand in this world with our human self and our environment, we're going to reach for something. I've seen it too many times. It pays to have that relationship before you get there. And it pays to be strong enough to love in any environment, to love even when we don't feel like it. But that's what it's going to take. And if we don't have faith and if we don't love each other, it's not going to happen. Is there anyone here who wouldn't lay your life down to save the life of anyone else here? I already know the answer. It's who we are as Americans. We don't leave anyone behind. I wondered, you know, in other countries, if it's a sick child, they don't want to waste resources on it. They'll put it somewhere on the back 40 so it can die quietly, where we don't have to listen. But not us. You see, leave no one behind is not a military concept. It's not a veteran concept. We got it from the country we serve. Because we'll pour resources into a sick child until their last breath of life. Because we have love and compassion. We love freedom and we have compassion for the human condition anywhere on the planet. And we've proven that. And we will not leave anyone behind. Let me tell you something. Don't let recent events fool you. That's not who we are. That's not where we're going. Take heart that there is no elected leadership that mandates how we the people treat our neighbor. They don't mandate the love we have for one another. And if we treat each other right and we live according to the core values that we preach, then pretty soon there will be no choice. There will be no oxygen left for people that deny our core values and our constitutional context. It's up to each one of us. Tag, you're it. So I'm asking you when you leave here, don't be inspired just tonight. Be inspired. I need you to be inspired tomorrow. I'm trying to raise a 16-year-old in this country. And, I need you. I need you. Please be strong. Please stand up for what's right. And today, I want to think about the shadow warriors. I want to think about the greater culture of service, because on Veterans Day, to me, from my experiences, after laying in a hospital bed and nurses that I didn't know, they had to wipe my butt for me 10 times a day or more. No one trained me for that in the Special Forces. I witnessed love and compassion just as a prerequisite to do their job. And I'm inspired by that. But I got taught the lesson that it's not about me. And it's not about those of us who call ourselves guardians. Because America's not great because of the military. America's great because America's great. And we charter a military to protect it. So veterans, stand with me and be strong enough to honor, by all means, honor Fort Bragg, Fort Benning. But what we really fought for is Fort Living Room, where Mama's the commander and where baby is safe because of those efforts and because of those sacrifices. And if we're complaining about what we endured in the service of this country, then we're defying the honor that it took to raise our right hands in the first place, because we knew what happened to men and women before us. And if it ceases to be the wrong thing just because it happens to us, we're hypocrites. Are we serving something greater than ourselves? People are hard to deal with, but we're serving a virtue, and that's greater than our petty squabbles each day. So I know that I took an oath when I joined the military, and I know that I retired and got put out to pasture. And as I said, I'm on the bench now. But no one ever relieved me of my duty to support the Constitution. Because I'm not a victim. I volunteered. And I'm not wounded, damn it. I'm a warrior. And with anything I've got left, with anything I have left, I have to honor God, and I have to support this country, and I have to love you and propel you forward any way I can and do anything I can for you all the time and love you even when I don't feel like it, because some of you are jerks. And to be equal opportunity here, women can be assholes too. I've seen them. I've seen them. At the end of the day, the answer is not to act like children and fight fire with fire, do the bad things to them that they're doing to us. The answer is to prevail with love and compassion and the core values that made this country great to begin with and gave anyone else the right to believe as they do. But there's still an adult in the room. So this Veterans Day, there's nowhere I'd rather be than here with you. And I don't have to regret anything that happened to me in the course of my service. It's the opposite. I'm honored. I'm scarred up pretty bad. I do not look good naked. But I don't care. It's a victory to me that I got to face our enemies and fight them. And we won. And I came home with honor to a country that loves me, and I know you do. I know you love me. What an honor it is to fight for this country, to survive, and become a citizen in the country that you swore was worth fighting for and dying for. This is it. I salute you all. Thank you for validating my service and continuing to stand for what we all believe in and we cannot let go of. God bless you all. Good night.
Let's hear it for Greg. Veterans Day here from now on known as Hug a Turd Day, which I like it, and I think it's a great ethos, and let me ask, are you inspired? Yeah. Outstanding. I want to take a moment before I introduce our last speaker to just make a couple quick introductions to folks that dropped by and that we appreciate them coming. Representative Rachel Cabral Guevara, Representative Elijah Benke, and Congressman Glenn Grothman are all milling about out in the crowd. So we appreciate them dropping by and being with us tonight. All right, so using Greg's parlance, I'm going to go from one turd to the next. I don't really believe that, but we veterans do use those kind of terms to refer to each other. Actually, I'm going from one outstanding veteran to another. Mark Oz Geist. Mark Geist is the best-selling co-author of 13 Hours, the inside account of what really happened in Benghazi. A security and military consultant, he is credited with saving 25 people in the attack on Benghazi. He is a native of Colorado and joined the United States Marine Corps in 1984. During his time in the service, he served in barracks duty in the Philippines, then with the 2nd Battalion, 9th Marines Gulf Company, as well as the surveillance and target acquisition platoon. He was then chosen to serve in the newly formed Marine Cadre program as the anti-counterterrorism instructor. Mark then changed his military occupational specialty to the intelligence field, specializing in interrogation translation. He attended language school where he studied Persian Farsi. After 12 years in the United States Marine Corps, Mark became a deputy sheriff in Teller County, Colorado. In that role, he was assigned as a liaison with the Vice Narcotics and Intelligence Unit in Colorado Springs, as well as an investigator for crimes against children. He then took a job as chief of police in Fowler, Colorado. After leaving the Fowler Police Department, Mark began his own business in private investigation as well as bounty hunting and bail bonds. In 2004, Mark began doing contract security work in Iraq. He's worked for USIS, the United States Investigative Services, training Iraqi SWAT teams and personal security details. He also served as an advisor to the personal security detail of the former Prime Minister of Iraq. He is a member of the Annex security team that fought the Battle of Benghazi, Libya from September 11 to September 12 of 2012. Mark finished his career as a security contractor in Benghazi, Libya, where he was credited with helping save the lives of more than 25 Americans. He is still recovering from the injuries he sustained in that battle. He is a co-author of the best-selling book 13 Hours, the inside account of what really happened in Benghazi. And please welcome him to Neenah.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much. I got to follow Greg Stubing, though. Come on. I mean, what an American hero. And isn't it awesome how the Lord works in our lives in the most unexpected ways? He teaches us lessons, doesn't he? Always when we're not expecting them. Taught me a lesson a lot of times throughout my life, but a big one on September 11th, 2012. Sitting on top of a rooftop thinking I'm invincible, he drops 3 81 millimeter mortars about 15 feet from me. 81 millimeter mortar, it has a kill radius of about 132 feet. Means if you're within 132 feet, you have about a 98% chance of dying from it. I was within 15 to 17 feet of 3 of them. The blast went through me and killed Ty and Glenn on the opposite side of me. A lot of people sit there and question, well, why would that happen? Why him? Why them? Do I carry survivor's guilt? And I don't, and the only reason I don't is because of the Lord, because I know the Lord has a purpose for everything he does, whether it's good or bad, and he puts things in our lives that we would never expect, just like Greg and the medic and that interaction that they had through that time. Kevin went into my background a little bit. My hero was my grandfather. He was a World War II vet, had 5 Purple Hearts, a Silver Star, Bronze Star. Fought in North Africa, fought in the Battle of the Bulge across Germany, stayed for the occupation of Germany, came back to Fort Carson in Colorado, and that's where he met my grandmother. Had 3 uncles that served during Vietnam, 1 in the Marine Corps, 2 in the Navy. So I knew what I was going to do, because I grew up in a small town out in eastern Colorado. When people ask me where I live, where I grew up, I always tell them it's where the buffalo roam. It's where that short grass prairie is. That's where I grew up, was where the buffalo roam. But I loved it. I mean, I was rodeoed, cowboyed. That's what I was going to do, or join the Marine Corps. And when I went in and talked to the recruiter, he said, hey, what do you want to do? And I said, what can I do? He says, you can do anything in the Marine Corps you want. I'm like, good. I want to jump out of airplanes, blow things up, and shoot things. He says, well, I've got a job for you. It's called the infantry. And I'm like, awesome, okay. But it was the greatest time of my life. I mean, I got to play soldier every day. I got to serve my country. I got to be a part of something much bigger than myself and make a difference in other people's lives. I went on from there, as you said, I was in law enforcement. I was ended up in Benghazi with 5 other team members that I'd never worked with. We knew each other, most of us, or knew of each other, but we never worked together as a team. That was the difference as a private security contractor. We didn't necessarily all travel as a team. I showed up. Some of them had already been there. We just had to meld together. It was that you had to be that professional. You had to overcome those differences. You had to hug a turd sometimes. But we had it was 5 of the greatest guys I could have ever been with, because they were the ones who needed to be there, because the Lord put them there. That night started a lot like most every night. I mean, we didn't work. I worked for a group called GRS, which is Global Response Staff. Our job was to protect CIA case officers in some of the worst parts of the world. They didn't send us to the Bahamas. I was really hoping they would. I thought that was on the recruitment video, but they didn't send us to those nice places. They sent us to the worst places in the world. I joke about it. People says, what countries have you been in? And I say, if it ends in the word stand, I've probably been there. Afghanistan, Pakistan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, all those wonderful stand countries. And that's what we did, is we'd move in 1 or 2 at a time. We'd be out, like that night I was out with a female case officer. We were having a dinner date with a local Libyan couple when I got a call from Tyrone that said, hey, you need to get back to the annex, stay away from the consulate. And I knew it was a pretty bad situation, because he wouldn't ever call and interrupt a dinner date. And so we got interrupted the female case officer in her work, got her in the car, and turned on our secure comms and headed out the gate to get back to the annex. And that's when we heard what was wrong and what was going on. And it was the sound of gunfire coming over the radio. You could hear the mortars, not the mortars, you could hear the rockets. And you could hear the people's voices and the fear in the State Department personnel, because they were getting overran by 40 armed insurgents. And you really knew it was bad when the team leader came over the radio and said, if you don't get here now, we're all going to die. And there was a few expletives in there, obviously, because you could hear the fear and what's scare and being that fear that comes about, as Greg said, when you're wishing that your mom was there with you. You were wishing that you weren't where you were at. Well, to get back to the annex, I could have went straight past the consulate, but that wouldn't have been a smart idea, because that's where everything was going on. So we headed west up the coast, cut back into the desert, and come back through. And right as we were just about there, we only need to make another couple turns. Right in front of us, 2 cars pull up, and about 6 or 8 guys jump out with AK-47s. And they're setting up a roadblock. Well, this blonde-haired, blue-eyed gringo, it has a hard time fitting in up close against a lot of the Arabs, right? I don't kind of fit the profile. My female case officer, she was doing okay. She's Arab descent, U.S. citizen, but she's Arab descent. She could fit in just fine. She could speak Arabic fluently. And as we're just getting ready to pull up, I'm sitting there thinking, what are we going to do and how we're going to handle this situation? Because there's no backup. It's just me and her. And again, the Lord interdicted that night. The car in front of me, instead of stopping for him, kept driving through, and all of them turned and looked that direction to follow that car. Well, I saw my opening. I took a real quick right turn, cut across the corner of the desert where that intersection was without them seeing me, and made it back. Went down, took another left, down, took another right, and we was able to make it back to the annex. I pulled into the annex, and we got about 20-some people. Excuse me. We got about 20-some people in our facility. It's, we have cooks, and most of them aren't the spy guys. They're all those that help support it. So, and they're running around like they're chickens with their head cuts off. And I finally get a hold of Bob, and I talk to him about what's going on. I get up on top of the rooftop, and I can see in the distance, about a mile away, the gunfire, the RPGs flying across the sky. And I can hear the radio calls of our team now engaging the bad guys. What had happened is they had left when they heard the same thing I did when they said, if you don't get here now, we're all going to die. Bob had already told them to stand down twice, and he told them not to go the third time. But you know what? They weren't going to do that, because you know what? We don't leave anybody behind. We are going to take everyone home, and we're going to help those. And again, it's make a difference in somebody else's life. I couldn't imagine not doing that, or not having the opportunity to make a difference in their life and not taking it. That's the thing I couldn't live with. The boys left, got over there. 2 of them went to high ground. The other 3 went down the front road, entered in through the front gate. And when they entered through the front gate of the consulate, and to paint a picture for you, we're talking a compound that's about 8 acres. There's about 40 people, 40 armed insurgents running around. And you have Tig, Jack, and Tyrone come through the front gate. And somebody's going to ask me, I'm sure, how do 3 guys overcome 40 armed insurgents? It's through 2 major things: element of surprise and violence of action. You come through that gate, and if they look like they're a bad guy, you shoot them in the face. And it really takes the fight out of them when they start seeing their friends to their left and right start falling. Well, it was such a surprise to them, and it happened so quick that those that didn't get killed all left immediately out the back gate. Tig and Jack and Ty secured the facility. The State Department security guys came out. Tonto and DB came down from their oversight position, and they started searching for the ambassador. And over the next hour or so, they kept looking for the ambassador in the building where he should have been. They'd found the body of Sean Smith. He had died of smoke inhalation. But they couldn't find the ambassador. And while this is going on, they start receiving gunfire again from the back gate where the bad guys had left out. Tig had made his way up on top of the rooftop, and there was an RPG that came flying over his head. And I got to see all this after I got out of the hospital about 6-8 weeks later. I got to see the drone footage. And you can see Tig coming, and you see this little figure coming across the rooftop, and you see a guy at the back gate, and he steps out and he fires an RPG, which is a rocket-propelled grenade. It's designed to blow up tanks. Steps back, hides behind the wall, loads another one, fires it, goes over top Tig's head again. Goes back and hides again, loads up a third one, and as he steps out, he fires it. And almost simultaneously as he fires it and it leaves the tube, Tig had come up and fired about 8 to 10 rounds. Most of them pass past that RPG and hit the guy, and he dies. And about halfway there, you see the RPG almost literally stop and take a 90-degree turn off into nowhere. Now, what are the odds of that, and is it physically even possible that would happen? No. Again, I think we had a 7th man on our team that night, and that was God looking out for us. When that happened, it took the fight out of the bad guys, and they pulled back out again. Ty had went up to the State Department guys. They'd gotten Sean's body loaded up in the back of their vehicle and said, hey, you guys need to go out, take a left, get back over to the annex. But instead of going out and taking a left, they went out and took a right. And why did that happen? Unfortunately, we are creatures of habit. And every time they would leave the gate, 99% of the time, they'd go out, take a left, drive down to what we called Adidas Road, take a right, and then be out into the city. Okay, how many people drive to work exactly the same way every day? Right? Okay, you do it because it's out of habit. You don't have to think if you're driving that way. You know where every stop sign is. I mean, you can be on your phone texting and not have to worry about it the whole way, right? I don't ever do that. But that's what they did, and that's why they did that, and they ran into an ambush, and they almost got shot up. But luckily, I mean, they got shot up. They almost all got killed, but luckily they were in a level 6 armored Toyota Hilux, which saved their life, and they made it back over to the annex. And when they pulled in, you could see the car. It was shot up, probably 40, 50 bullet holes up and down both sides. The front windshield was almost completely peppered with pop marks from AK-47s. And they stepped out of the vehicle, and you could see the fear of where they were almost combat ineffective. One of them was due to smoke inhalation. Scott had been in with the ambassador and trying to save his life, and that's when he got separated, and he was able to get out, but he couldn't find the ambassador when he went back in looking for him. The team leader, he just immediately went inside. The other 3, I grabbed them and I got them put up on some defensive positions that we had previously established. And we did that because we knew that anytime we could get attacked. We had elevated fighting positions in the corners of our compound. We had each rooftop, we had 4 rooftops. Each one had a 50 cal ammo can that was full of magazines for 5.56 preloaded. So if 1 or 2 of us were up there and we had to maneuver, fire and maneuver, we could do that without having to worry about taking ammo with us or running out of ammo. Because that's one thing that the CIA did good is they gave us a lot of ammo. I mean, our team, we had 3 Marines, 2 Navy SEALs, and an Army Ranger. 3 Marines, we had over 60,000 rounds. If you give me 3 Marines and 60,000 rounds of ammo, we can do a lot of damage. I mean, that's like a box of crayons to us, right? I mean, let us, in case of emergency, break glass. There you go. We had 2 Navy SEALs, I mean, because we wanted to take some pictures and look good. And then we had an Army Ranger that was going to carry water for us. No, I'm sorry, I'm just joking. I got to give my brothers a heck all the time. No. Again, it's that team that was meant to be there because we all worked well together and we did what we had to do, and we all knew, without even talking, we knew how to follow off each other's movements. Well, the rest of the team, after the State Department guys left, they had to make a decision. Do we stay here and try to search for the ambassador? And in an undefendable position, or do we go ahead and fall back because we couldn't find him so far? Let's regroup, see what other assets we can get brought in or that they'll give us. We found that out real quick. 0. But we didn't need them anyways. We had the Lord on our side. That's all that mattered. So they exfil out of there. They come back. They get back over and they fill up. All they did is come in and say, where do you got guys? And I told them where we had guys. And they just filled in the positions that needed to be filled in. And we're starting to feel really good now. You know, they went over there. We've got everybody back alive except for Sean, and we couldn't find the ambassador. Wasn't sure if he was kidnapped or if he was just stuck back in there somewhere and we couldn't find him in that building, if the boys couldn't find him. Well, about that time, we start seeing movement on our eastern flank. We start hearing cars pull up. We look through our night vision, we could see him starting to mount up a group of people over there. We get a hold of Bob and we ask him if that happens to be one of the friendly or quasi-friendly militias, February 17th Martyrs Brigade. And he says, no, he don't believe it is. Well, myself, I was in a corner position. Tonto and DB were in an elevated on top of one of the rooftops. Tig had come over to where I was at, and it was about that time they threw an IED over the wall that landed just behind me and Tig and blew up. And that instigated the first attack on our base. It was about 15 to 20 guys had come up, AK-47s mainly, and a few IEDs. But we were doing pretty good because we had infrared scopes, we had lasers, and we had identified all our targets, and we had them in a crossfire. Tig and Tonto were up here, me and Tig were back here, and it was like shooting prairie dogs. I don't know, you guys got prairie dogs out here in Wisconsin? See, I grew up shooting prairie dogs. That was one thing my grandpa taught me to shoot on. He'd give me a box of ammo and say, okay, 1 round for each prairie dog. I got in trouble when I come back and I only had 1 prairie dog and an empty box. But that's how I learned to shoot, and that's what it was like that first one. We were feeling pretty good because every time somebody stick a head up, we'd put a couple rounds into them. Rule number 1 in my book is anything we're shooting once is worth shooting at least 3 times. Okay? And the reason for that is because, hey, ammo's cheap, life isn't. So you got to take care of it. I've seen too many guys get shot with a 5.56, get back up, especially if they're hopped up on drugs, and get back in the fight on you. So make sure you put them down if you're going to put them down. And that firefight only lasted maybe 15 minutes, 10, 15 minutes, because I don't think they expected the sheepdog that was guarding this place to have the teeth in it that we did. They expected to run over our base just like they did the consulate. But we were going to make sure that didn't happen. And as we're sitting there, they pulled their dead and injured back. We're starting to feel good again. And that's when we get a call from Glenn Doherty's team. They had been able to acquire a civilian aircraft loaded up a team because they're the only ones that could get there quick. Took about a 2.5-hour plane ride for them, and they landed at the Benghazi airport, the international airport. The downside to that is the Benghazi airport was occupied and controlled by one of the militias. Now, this one was, they didn't really want to get into a gunfight with us. They just wanted money. And again, thank you for your tax dollars. The CIA uses them real well. We give them to warlords so they don't fight with us. Yeah, I know. It makes you feel good about all them dollars, right? Well, think about it. You guys saved our lives. Thank you. Because they were able to negotiate with that militia to get vehicles and get to us. So they were trying to get to us, and though those militias are sometimes they're a rough negotiator. They knew what was going on. They weren't gonna just give into it right away. They wanted to get as much out of them as they could. Well, while that's going on, we start seeing movement again on our eastern and northeastern flank. This time it's about 2.5 times more. There's probably 20 to 30 people coming this next time. And they're moving up. They're trying to flank our up into our northern area. That's what we call zombie land. And as they're moving up, we're feeling again. I mean, we can identify them. We put a laser on them so everybody knows where they're at. And all of a sudden, the car comes down the dirt road towards our back gate, which was on our eastern wall. And as it comes up, it slides to a stop. A guy jumps out, and I catch him out of the corner of my eye, and he's got his hand back like he's going to throw something. So I just put 3 rounds into him. He falls like a sack of potatoes, and what he was throwing was another IED. He was trying to blow open our back gate. Well, it landed short, and that started the next firefight. Now, this one lasted a little bit longer. It was probably 15, 20 minutes, at least 20, 25 minutes. They kind of stayed in the fight with more guys. But again, I mean, we had them in a crossfire. It was like playing whack-a-mole at the county fair. Again, every time they stick their head up, you're going to put a bullet or 2 in the bad guys. And now we're really feeling good. After that ended, they started pulling their dead and wounded back again. No one had any major injuries. I'd gotten some I got some glass in my face because they were trying to shoot out our lights, so I had a few cuts on my face. Tiggy took a ricochet in his side. He was kind of whining about that a little bit, but it wasn't bleeding, so I told him to man up, quit being a wuss. And again, but the one thing that was still in our heavy on our mind is we couldn't find the ambassador. They didn't know where he was at. We had called for close air support. We called for a Spectre gunship and anything that they could send. We hadn't got notification that it was coming. They had a drone there. Thank goodness we could see through the drone. Well, it really didn't help because we would ask to see what they saw out there, and by the time it would go all the way back through the radio channels to where the guy that's looking at it and who was flying it and got back to us, we were already in the gunfight. So we kind of gave up on the use of that drone. But again, we were feeling pretty good. So this time now, it's getting it's about 2 o'clock, 2:30 in the morning. We know Glenn's team is trying to make their way to us. And I had moved off there and went over and got up on the rooftop where Ty was. And when I got up there, Ty was our medic. He went around and started checking everybody, making sure everything was good, because we had a couple guys, the 2 State Department guys had smoke inhalation, so he wanted to check on them. Tonto had a wall fall over on him when he was trying to climb over it, so he had some scratches and bruises, so check on him. And by the time he comes back up, it was really getting kind of quiet for the night. We're starting to, it's at downtime, and this is when sometimes it's the hardest in those gunfights. It's because your adrenaline's been up here for the last 8 or 9 hours, and now you have that little bit of time and it starts to drop down, and that's when you really feel how worn out you are. But me and Ty were talking about our families a little bit because he had a young boy that was about a year old, 1.5 years old. My little girl was 7 months old. We were talking about Tig. Tig had 2 twins that were the same age as my little girl, just about 2 weeks older. Tonto had 3 kids, and Jack had just found out that day that his wife was pregnant with their 3rd child. You start thinking about those things at home and what you've left behind and what you're sacrificing for. But that also at the same time gives you pride and energy, because knowing that we got to make sure we go home. About that time, it's getting on about 5 o'clock, 5:15 in the morning, and Glenn's team rolls up with a militia. They jump out, come in, and all of the guys go into the building except for one, and that was Glenn. Now, see, I didn't know Glenn. Glenn Doherty, I only knew him by reputation, and Glenn was he was a sniper in the Navy SEALs before becoming a contractor, and he was that guy you always wanted on your team because he always had a smile on his face and he would bring the morale of everybody up all the time. That's what everyone knew about him. He was born and raised in Boston, served the Navy on the West Coast, loved surfing, loved filming, making movies about the outdoors, and just loved bringing happiness to other people. He had a great soul. He comes up, and that's when he comes over, and Ty introduces me. And I had shook his hand, said, "It's great to have another gunfighter up here. Hopefully we're not going to need you." And they both stepped to my left. And it probably wasn't a minute after that when an RPG hit the back wall right in front of us. And another mortar, the first mortar hit and landed on the wall, the top of the wall. Dave was one of our State Department guys. He was over on the far corner. That's where our ladder to get up and down was. He was kind of pulling security over there. And when that mortar hit, Ty opened up with a belt-fed machine gun. I opened up with my M4. Glenn was moving to try to get some separation because we didn't all three of us be in the same spot. And as he's moving, Dave took shrapnel from that mortar, and he yells out that he's hit. And everything in your body wants you to go over and help him, because I could see a silhouette of him sitting there holding his head, and you knew that he was injured, and he's yelling out, calling your name, and you want to go over there, but you can't, because if I leave my position, then our perimeter right there is weaker. I've got to take out the bad guys before I can go help them. In our world, we call that self-aid. You got to know how to take care of yourself first. You got to have a med kit on you. You got to be able to put that tourniquet on, stop the bleeding, do all those things. I had to depend on him to take care of himself. We had to take care of the threat. As I turn around and I start firing, I went through my first mag. I knelt down, changed mags, loaded a mag, and as I'm starting to stand back up, I'm about halfway in a crouch when the next mortar hits, and it hit about 15 feet to my right where there's a wall that we were hiding behind, using as cover, and the rooftop. And as I stand up, it kind of knocked me back a little. And I go to bring up my gun, I notice, and finish standing up, and that's when I see Ty in a fetal position at my feet. And he's out of the fight. All in my mind I can think of is I got to get back in the fight, because I know Dave's out of the fight because he got injured. Ty's now out of the fight. Glenn was moving, so he hadn't got into the fight yet. And so I go to raise my gun up, and that's when I bring my left arm up to help aim, and about 6 inches above the wrist here, it was just kind of hanging at a 90-degree angle. A piece of shrapnel had went in, disintegrated the radial bone, about 2 inches of it, shattered the ulna. Just had about 2 pieces of skin kind of holding it on. But luckily, adrenaline, it's a hell of a drug, and that will to stay in the fight. All I could think of was making sure that no one else is able to shoot. I got to keep shooting. So I'm swinging my arm, trying to make it hold my gun while I'm firing. And that's when the next mortar hits. And it was, again, just a little bit further back. It hit and it landed right in front of Glenn as he's moving over that way, and took him out. I took some more shrapnel from that, but I knew I still had to stay in the fight. So I kept up there and I started trying to shoot again, and the third mortar hit. Now that was the one that was the first one where I actually felt any pain. And that one, enough of the adrenaline had run off from the first two, felt like I got stung by 1,000 bees. And I kind of figured I better get to some cover because another one's coming, I expected. And if I didn't, I'd probably be dead. So I dove down and got to cover, and lucky for me, again, for whatever reason, they quit shooting mortars at us. Because they had us dead to rights. Everything went completely quiet. Obviously, I can't hear much because I just had 3 mortars go off. Loudest thing I've ever heard in my life. Brightest light I've ever seen. but I know I got to take care of myself because I'm injured. So I sit up, lean up against the wall, and I pull out a tourniquet, and I start to try to put the tourniquet on. But then I see Ty laying out over next to me, and I'm still in my heart wanting to hope that he's alive. So instead of taking care of myself, I go over and crawl over to see if he's up. Also, about that time, I see a shadow come up over the rooftop where the ladder is, and that's Tig coming up there. See, Tig was the hero that night in my mind because he knew that 3 mortars had just landed on the top of that building, and he knew that we were up there, and he knew that we were injured or dead. He didn't care if that mattered to him. He came up there knowing that it could have been another mortar anytime because you can't hear them coming in. The movies do real well, having that nice sound that they make. I couldn't hear a single one of them. Tig comes up, stops by Dave. Luckily, Tig had a bag with him that had 3 tourniquets in it. He took the tourniquets out because Dave had 2 tourniquets in it. I'm sorry. Dave's arm was about blown off like mine, and so was his left leg. Tig got 2 tourniquets put on Dave and saved his life. Then Tig kind of comes over to where I'm at. Now, in case anybody if you guys have heard Tig's story on this, I'll tell you he's lying. This is one part he lies about a little bit, okay? Because, see, he says he came over to where I was at because he heard some whining over there. Okay? Now, see, I was over there, and I didn't hear none. So I was the one that was there, so I probably have the first-hand account. Tig don't, okay? So I got to clear that up real quick. Well, Tig comes over, and I sat back up at that time, and I'm holding my arm up, and I reached down to grab my tourniquet and try to get it on my arm before it fell down. And Tig kind of come up, and he just stopped and watched me do that a couple times. That's a friend for you. He looks down at me, and he says, "Oz, you might want to quit playing with that thing. You're not going to make it any better." And just a little bit of that dry humor we have in those types of situations. Well, Tig reaches down, grabs that tourniquet, and puts it on. That thing hurt more than any of the shrapnel I had in me. He got that tightened down, stand me up, and he said, "Hey, can you make it over to the ladder by yourself?" And I forgot that rule number 1 when you go into the military: don't volunteer. I did. I'm like, yeah, I can do that, and I did that because I knew that in the back of my mind I was still hoping that Ty and Glenn were alive, and I knew that Tig would be the one that could save them. So I walk over to the ladder. Now, the ladder's just 1.5 inch square tubing that we'd cut up and welded into a ladder and bolted it up to the side of the building. And we had this box that was about 2 feet high, so you could step up on that just to get up onto the wall to go over the ladder, or go over the wall to get on the ladder. Well, one of the other guys that showed up, one of Glenn's team guys that showed up, and he comes up top of the rooftop and he says, "Hey, can you get down that ladder on your own? Here, let me help you out." I get up there on the wall, and he sits me down on the wall, and the ladder's right there. Well, he turns and walks away because he's going to help the guys. And now I'm sitting there thinking, how in the heck am I going to get onto that ladder, right? It's sitting right here beside me. And my arm's kind of hanging off. Doesn't work too well, and I've got this good one. And bigger than anything is, I don't mind my obituary if it reads, got into a gunfight, killed a bunch of bad guys, got blown up. I can deal with that. I think that'd make my kids proud. But the last thing I wanted it to read was, got into a gunfight, killed a bunch of bad guys, got blown up, fell off a roof, and broke neck. Right? I'm not going out that way. I'm not going out that way. So I look down, I'm like, the first rung's right there, so I figure I can hook my arm around that top rung, and if I just slide off, I'm going to slide down, and my body will turn, and I'll land right on the ladder, right? Makes sense, right? Okay. It made sense to me at the time, at least. Well, Murphy's Law, what can go wrong will go wrong, and everything was looking perfect until my feet were supposed to land on the ladder, and they didn't. They went through the ladder, and but again, hey, I ain't going to fall and break my neck. I had a death grip with this arm, and I was able to hold on, so I didn't fall really down the ladder at all. Was able to get my feet under me, climb down, started walking around the front, ran into another guy that was coming out. He walked me inside, and they laid me down on the floor of the building. He went back out because he was another medic for Glenn's team, headed back up to see if he could help out. Well, while I'm laying there, you know, all the lights are off because all the CIA personnel, they thought that it would, if they had the lights on, it would be, and the door opened, it'd be a target indicator. I was kind of like, they kind of know where we're at, so the lights off ain't gonna matter if they're inside. But they didn't, they're standing there and they're looking at me and they got flashlights shining in my face and ain't nobody doing nothing. And I'm like, hey, you guys need to cut my clothes off because I know I've got other injuries. And the only one that responded was that female case officer. Yeah, I was hoping the same thing what you're thinking. She just wanted to see me naked, right? She takes off to the med room and I just hear things getting thrown everywhere, and she yells out and she says, Oz, I can't find the medical shears. I'm like, they're in the first set of shelves, third from the top. And the reason for that is anytime I was at any place, it's kind of, I've got the 6 Ps. Anybody know what the 6 Ps are? Prior planning prevents piss poor performance, right? Okay, that's a Marine thing. I would take a water bottle, cut the top off, and I'd tape it near one of our gurneys so I could put 3 things in there that help me, I know will help me save lives. A tourniquet, medical shears, and morphine. She ran in there, grabbed them, comes back, and she's getting ready to, starts to cut my clothes off. Well, in the meantime, our deputy chief of base, he didn't want to be shown up by that female case officer, right? So he pulls out a buck knife and flips it open. Okay, now he says, here, Oz, I'll cut your clothes off. Now this guy's shaking like a dog crapping a peach seed. And again, it goes through my mind what my obituary's going to read, right? I'm like, boss, no, why don't you just hold on? She'll come. I ain't going to bleed out. I know it. I promise. Well, he puts the knife away. I convince him to put the knife away. She comes in. They get my clothes cut off. Found about 20, 25 holes in me. Most of them weren't too bad. I mean, we have this thing, you know, if it's squirting, you stop the ones that are squirting. Don't worry about the ones that are oozing. So we just took care of the squirters. I got hit in the neck. This was about 1 millimeter from my carotid artery. I had about 4 or 5 in my chest. I got a hole about halfway through my sternum. So doctor told my wife that there was one in, it's about 2 inches from my heart. She's like, what heart? I'm like, that wasn't funny. So we get them all patched up, and that's when they bring Dave down. And Dave is really doing bad. I mean, he lost a lot of blood, and he's in and out of consciousness. They bring him in. They start working on him. Finally, about 7 o'clock in the morning, they'd been able to get Ty and Glenn's bodies off the rooftop. They get them down, and we finally had another militia that came in. And here's the irony of it. The militia that came in and helped escort us to the airport was a Gaddafi loyalist militia. The irony is that the militia that attacked the consulate actually was one that fell under the umbrella of Feb 17 that we supported in overthrowing Gaddafi. That's some of the convoluted intricacies of working and dealing with things in the Middle East. You never know who your friend is until it's too late sometimes. I rode out to the airport in the back of a Hilux pickup truck. It's kind of like a little Toyota Tacoma. Got a picture of it from one of the militia guys. Somehow ABC News had gotten a picture, and I'd seen it on or somebody had seen it on the news, and it's a guy that's laying naked in the back of a Hilux pickup truck. And another guy kind of sitting there kind of pulling security. But we get out to the airport, and they come over, and I'm on a gurney, and they go to try to grab the gurney, and I kind of brushed them back because I knew I could walk. And I had actually told him, I said, you know, I walked into Benghazi, I'm going to walk out. There's no way I'm going to get carried. And so I stood up off the back of the pickup truck, and I walked up to the airplane. As I'm walking up, they had an IV in me, and they were escorting me up there, and there was a female flight attendant. So the aircraft was a private aircraft owned by a Libyan, and he had sent his pilot, co-pilot, and the flight attendant with it to fly Glenn's team down. And as I walk up to the ladder, the stairs that go up, this woman her eyes were like the size of saucer plates. And next thing I know, she just runs to the back. See, I forgot I was naked. So I'm not sure if it was because I was bloody and beaten up, or it's she just the first time she ever saw a white guy naked. I'm not sure what there. So I climb up to the stairs, and she's coming back from the back of the airplane. She's got a handful of towels, and I figure she wants me to cover up. So I go to start to reach out and grab one with my good hand, and she stops and starts laying them down on the floor. See, she had a job, and her job was to make sure that plane came back clean. She was afraid I was going to bleed on the floor. I brush past her, and I go back, and there was a couch in the back. I lay down on the couch, and they load up everybody else, and they get Dave in there finally. It took a bit to get Dave. Dave couldn't walk, obviously. He was in and out of consciousness. They had him strapped to a gurney, and Dave was a big boy. He was about 6'4", 6'5". They tried to get him through that little door and then make that turn into that airplane. Got him in. It was about 9 o'clock, I think, when we took off. But we couldn't load up everybody. Only the non-essential personnel, which was all the CIA personnel. No pun intended. No, they were all great people, but we got everybody loaded except for the shooters. The rest of Glenn's team and the rest of our team stayed behind because we couldn't fit everybody in the airplane. We got in and took off, and now they're waiting for the next airplane to come in. They didn't know exactly what was going to happen or not. Well, about 10:30, C-130 lands, and they're thinking, hey, finally an American aircraft has shown up. But as it comes in, it takes a right turn, and when it takes a right turn, there's a Libyan flag on the tail fin. They go over and park. Well, again, luckily we still had some money in that big bag. So your tax dollars also paid for probably the most expensive C-130 trip to get the rest of the guys to Tripoli. Because they went over and talked to them and told them that, hey, it's probably in your financial interest to fly us there. We'll give you a bunch of money, and I don't know what it was, but that's how we got out. The last guy got out of Libya almost 13 hours to the exact T from when it started. That's why we had the name 13 Hours. The key thing, the takeaway from it is we didn't do it with any help from anywhere else. We did it because there were 6 of us that chose not to lose, to never give up, to stay in the fight. No matter how bad life is, what kind of pile of crap it's given you in the last hour, the last 20 minutes, the last 10 years of your life, you have a choice to do what you want from that point on, and that's either stay in the fight or don't. If you want to stay in the fight, you got to stay in the fight. And that means putting everything into it. This country right now, we're kind of down on our knees a little bit, it seems like, right? Seems like not everybody really believes in what we fought for, what you guys believe in. But does that matter what they do or how they do things are going to affect us? It's a matter of if we decide to stay in the fight. And that fight isn't necessarily a physical fight, because that's the last thing we want is a physical fight like that. But what we have to do is come together, and as Greg said, 2 things. Whether we like the people that disagree with us or not, we got to love them, because one, that's what the Lord commands us to do. When I was getting ready to write the book, when we started to do that, I was on the call with a publishing company, and they asked me, they said, hey, do you, one of their questions was kind of weird. They said, do you hate the people that were trying to kill you? And I'm like, why would I hate them? And they're like, well, they were trying to kill you. And I'm like, I don't have to hate people to kill them, so I don't know why they would hate me. See, that's their reaction too, and I thought, oops, that didn't come out right. But really what I'm trying to say is I can't do that. I can't, and Greg can't, and when we're in that fight, we can't do it with hate. Because if I do it with hate in my heart, then it's an evil thing. Okay? I got to do my job, and that job was to make sure people went home. And they were the people that we were protecting. They were the Americans that we had. And I was going to do that. And I wasn't going to do it out of hate. I was going to do it because, you know what? That's what we have to do. And if you're dumb enough to fight us, then, you know what? I love you for it, because I don't mind a fight every now and then either. But truly, that's what it is. I mean, it's this day and age right now, we are in a spiritual war in this country. Because it ain't about the neighbors that disagree with us or those that are down in Green Bay or Milwaukee that disagree with us. Because they're just being misled by the same thing that's trying to get us to hate them. Right? They're the ones that are falling into that same thing. And the only way that we can fix that is we can love them. We can love those that disagree with us. That doesn't mean we have to like them, doesn't mean we have to agree with what they want or their policies. But what we do have to do is, because this country's kicked the Lord out of everything. We've kicked it out of our schools. We've kicked it out of our lives. We've made church this, and I mean, I hope I don't offend anybody, but Christ was not weak. Okay? There was nothing weak about him, and this level of what the left and we've allowed even some of our preachers and our pastors to talk about this sweet, easy life of Christ. I mean, I told a friend of mine, he's a Navy SEAL and he doesn't have a relationship with the Lord. I said, you know Christ was a Navy SEAL. He's like, what? I'm like, think about it. The guy walked on water. Okay? He went to Hell Week, right? The Friday he came into Jerusalem was the first day of Hell Week. He had to endure all of that, and then he had to endure carrying a cross up the hill to get hung on it. If that ain't a Navy SEAL, I don't know what is. I says, and then to boot, guess what? He hung out with hookers and thieves and criminals. Now that's a Navy SEAL, right? And I'm not saying that to be light of Christ at all. Because you know what? I love him with all of my heart, and I follow him with everything that I do. Because without him, then I'm no better than the people I was fighting against. And we, as a country, have to come together. John Adams said it best. His greatest fear was that our country become a two-party country, and people's loyalty to the party is more important than their loyalty to the country. Because I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. I'm an American first. Me, along with all these other veterans that have served over the last 246 years, we have fought to protect the values and the rights that this country was founded upon. Those things were written down. Think about this. Our Constitution is 7 pages. 7 pages. Now, if we can't write a bill that's shorter than that, then we are messed up. A lot of the people that were in that compound that worked for the agency, some of them were liberals. Every different race, religion, some Muslims, some not. I've lived with Muslims for off and on for 9 years. I've had some save my life. I've had some try to kill me. But you know what? The thing is we're all there for the right reasons. What we want, of all the countries I've ever been to, it's pretty simple. I want to be able to send my kids to school or send them to town and let them be outside and not get raped, burnt, murdered, blown up, killed, or stabbed, or beaten up. I want to be able to put a roof over my family's head. I want to be able to make $1 and not have the government sticking their hand in my pocket, taking 2/3 of it out to give to somebody else who doesn't want to work. That is worldwide. And whether you agree with my philosophies or my ideologies, you're an American and I'm going to fight for you and I'll bleed for you, just like every other veteran I know. Because it's the standard that is put in there. It is those that we have to, I fight for the First Amendment, not just because it gives me the right to speak, because it gives you the right to speak against me. Because if I don't have somebody who opposes me in thought, then I'm never going to learn anything. Because I can't, and this is what social media has done to us. Social media has allowed me to be around a bunch of people that think just like I do and reinforce whatever things are going on in my head. And that's the use of the devil too, so be careful of what it is. Understand it that it's a great tool, but it can be a bad tool as well. Because it divides us. It isolates us. It's like PTS. Makes me stay in my room. I don't need to go anywhere. I can be around a few people that I like, because I don't like a lot of people. I love you guys, but I don't like a lot of people, and that's just because of being around too many people and all the things I've done in my life. I like being by myself a lot. But you know what? We can't let the devil win. We cannot let evil win. We are the only country that has ever existed. Every country before us, every superpower, whatever, has been controlled by a dictator or a tyrant. The United States is that experiment that has never happened and has done so well, and that's those freedoms that we've had. It's that government of the people, by the people, that has made us the strength that we are, the powerhouse that we are, because no other country has ever developed as fast and as strong as we have in such a short time. And it is up to we the people. It is up to us. One, to love our enemies, love our neighbors, and love ourselves. Forgive each other. Couple things, and I'll probably get this wrong. I'm trying to remember it from by heart, but a couple things we always got to remember. Always remember the things that we do wrong, because it'll make sure that I don't do it again. And I got to remember all of those who have done good to me, because then I'll appreciate my fellow man. And I got to forget all those good things that I've done. Because if I keep thinking about them and put my effort on remembering those, all that does is feed my ego and makes me think that I'm something that I'm not. And I've also got to forget those who have done bad things to me, and I've got to forgive them. And if we can do those 4 things, life will be a whole lot better, and we will be a much better country. And we're going to do it, we were talking in the green room a lot of times, and I've heard this a lot, hey, you guys ready to arm up? And we need a civil war. I've seen war. We don't need a civil war. Okay? That thing will be fought in our backyards. It'll be fought in our downtown streets. And that is not what we want. We have to fix what's going on, and we can only do that through the grace of God and loving one another and working together and trying to find ways to come together than go apart. Don't have to always agree, don't have to like what they say, but we've got to make it right. We've got to fix it. It's like a family that's been separated. It's Thanksgiving. We got to get together and not fight this time, right? Hey, I want to thank you all. I know we've ran over, so I was going to see if anybody wanted to have any questions. I don't know if Kevin? Okay. So I'm going to stick around afterwards if you guys want to come by, say hi, get a picture, something like that. We'll be up here as well. But if I don't get to see or talk to you, God bless you all. Thank you for being Americans. Thank you for loving this country. You're welcome. Thank you.
Let's hear it for Mark. Outstanding. I know I asked it before, but I'll ask again. Are you inspired and ready to fight? All right, excellent. Real quick, I think we have a raffle we're going to read off. This will take just a moment, and then we have a quick close, and we'll go from there. Come on up. Yep. Good deal. This is for Free Speech for Campus. Is everything drawn and ready to go? Okay, all right, good deal. Excellent. I'll announce them quick. This is Polly from Free Speech. All right, the first one, Jeff Hulsbeck, Huelsbeeck. You have won. And Cindy Wilkinson, you have won. And Tanya, what do you think? Metoxen, you have won. You knew it. You knew immediately. So everybody thank Polly Olson and Free Speech on Campus for the rally. Thank you, Polly. So real quick, I just want to thank everybody for coming tonight. I want to thank our speakers for sending such a powerful message about what makes this country truly amazing. Give them another round of applause. I want to thank our No Better Friend team, our volunteers for all their hard work in making this work so you could all come here today. Give them a round of applause for all their hard work. And on this Veterans Day, I just want to remind us all that it is a strong and strategic national defense, the kind of warriors you heard talk tonight, the kind of people who believe deeply in this country and its beauty, that understand that we actually do have to have a strong national defense in order to keep people safe and to stop conflict before it starts. And never forget it, and I know you know it, that this nation has set more people free, allowed the achievement of more dreams, and created more opportunity than any other human-made institution in all of human history. And we should all be proud of that every single day, not just on Veterans Day. God bless you all, and thank you so much for coming tonight.